Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, and man, do I have a fun show tonight! I got a good friend coming on. Haven't had a good chat with him in a while, so I'm really excited for that. But first, before I bring him on, don't forget at the Wiz Comic every Wednesday morning by 9 a.m. Eastern. The new one is up today. We're starting an adventure very soon in this. I haven't actually done a like ongoing story really with the Wiz, but um, I'm having him join an adventuring party, and so we're gonna start very soon going on an adventure so you guys can catch up. There's only been two strips right now that start the adventure story, but there's I think I have about 100 plus Wiz strips on there. Anyway, let me tell you about the guy coming on tonight. He's been on the show before. I've seen him watching in the audience, so that's always a good thing. Um, he does a terrific comic called Koncrete Kombat, which we're going to talk about, and you could view on his Patreon. Um, but let's just bring him on. It's Sebastian Bonet.
Yo,
Ah,
like it has been a minute.
I
Happy New
know.
Year.
Happy New Year, man. How you doing?
I'm gravy, man. Just coming in with that energy. It's got that
Yeah.
that that taco late night energy in me. How you been, man?
Good. Tired, but good. Busy.
Yeah, listen.
Which is the way I like it. I like being busy. I like, especially when it's on my own artwork. That's my
Okay, that's good.
favorite way to to be busy.
Well, you've been killing it with the Wiz, man. I see the strips when they've been releasing and everything. So again, congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
know you were
Thank you.
always talking about bringing him back, and you just been hammering it away, bro. So
Thank
congratulations
you.
on that.
Thank you so much. I actually just, and I think I've told this on here before, my schedule gets so crazy sometimes. Sometimes I don't even draw it before the night before, or even write it before the night before I post it. Um, so last night I was up till 1:30 drawing this week's Wiz.
Spoken like a true indie creator.
Yeah, but man, it was fun. I had a lot of energy. Um, and like I said on the intro, with me starting like an adventuring campaign, I'm bringing my love of role playing games into this now, and there's going to be a fun adventure coming. And I will say
I'm excited.
this: I still don't even have it 100% planned. Hey, Mike Wilkie, how you doing?
Listen,
Thank you
it's
for
like
tuning.
this. Hey, Mike, it's like this. The best adventures are the unplanned adventures.
Yeah.
You just go with the punches.
Well, that's why I'm doing it. I'm actually kind of writing the story with my D20. Um, so
Nice.
as I go along, I'm kind of playing D&D by myself with the Wiz characters, you know, being being my players, and I put them in situations, and I roll to see what happens to them.
Listen, that's been basically how I've gone with Concrete Combat. I think we've all been influenced by Dungeons and
Oh
Dragons.
my god, dude! The whole role playing thing. Hold on, let me just say hi to Dylan in the audience. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, no. I think it's going to be a fun way to write. I think yeah, and I haven't read your entire uh, comic, but I could see how choices could be made in that whole D&D style. Like, oh, what am I going to do now? Am I going to roll, am I going to do this or this? Let me roll to see what I get. Oh, I got a 3. Well, this is happening now. It's so
I so what's funny? Shout out to Tommy who runs the Medusa's Cascade podcast.
awesome guy, awesome guy.
Whenever there is a choice that he thinks is cool, he'll go. You know what? Odds or evens. Whenever something happens, and he'll let the dice just help tell the story and have the
Mhm.
player choose. And I'm always the guy that's going odds because again, I'm always like the odds are forever in your favor. What goes odds? You know what I mean? So it's like they like why it's gonna be messy.
Yeah. No, it's a fun way to work. I gotta say, it's a very fun way to work, and I think I might be pulling that method into some of my other stuff when I really get confused on what I need to do.
Well, it's like so it's like it's fun because it's like when we're writing, and I can
Mhm.
see a lot of times it's like in that writer's block with trying to write stuff. trying to because like with D&D it's helped with really deep diving in character thought, deep diving in what a character thinks and all that, but then using that extra element of, yeah, which I think is cool, of a D20 die to kind of help decide what that character is going to do. It's that randomness that
Yeah.
now gives you a story that's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have thought of this, and it just helps progress. We had this conversation with someone who was like explaining D&D to me. They're like, well, it's not a fun game if you're succeeding all the time, because
Mhm.
some of the best moments are in the failures.
Yeah.
And it has created a lot of memorable moments. Like the one time when my character didn't have toilet paper to wipe the rear, and he decided to use the street that was of the yeah, we'll leave it like that. That's some Medusa's Cascade for that one, how that worked out for him.
Yeah. And the Medusa Cascade, that is on YouTube, right? You guys
If it was on
oh,
Spotify,
Spotify, I'm sorry.
you could, I believe you could go to medusascascade.com. It's just been releasing, and it's a podcast that started back in February of 2020,
Yeah, I
and it is
remember.
still going.
You know what? I kind of fell off listening to it. I used to listen to it, and it's just one of those things. Stuff happens, and you disappear. I don't even know where I left off. I have to go back and see. And
Well, the cool thing is that Tommy's doing like the arc episodes where he's
mhm.
summarizing stuff that people may have missed, which I think is
Okay,
pretty cool. There's a lot of things that he's implemented. There's other stuff that still hasn't been released yet. So he's just been working hard. He's also a
yeah,
dungeon master for hire. So if anybody's looking for a dungeon master to DM their games, he's open and ready for hire and all that too. So
that's
that's my shout out to Tommy. That's my public
that's good.
announcement for him.
That's great. Listen, he's an awesome guy. He's been on the show, I think, twice now. I'd love to bring him back on and chat one day. Um, when I do a focus on gaming episode, I'll have to reach out to him. He's always interesting. Um, so you know what? We've been on for a few minutes now, but outside of my introduction to you, let's give the audience who doesn't know you a little background. Give us your as you guys used to call it on Nerds of the Round, your secret origin.
Well, in a galaxy far, far away, I was raised on a farm with on the sand planet and everything now.
Two sons, the works. Yeah.
So no, Sebastian Bonet grew up in the Bronx. Always had a love for comics, animation, anime. One of the things that always got me into comics was when I picked up one of my first X-Men comic books. It was a What If comic book featuring the X-Men, and just from there, and I know some people are like, well, you're a Marvel fanboy. No, I like Batman, even though Batman is the whole DC universe. I'm sorry, not sorry. So, but I've always had a love for comics. I've always had a love for anime. First few animes I got into was Ghost in the Shell, Armitage the Third, and it just started opening up in there, Guyver. So I saw a lot of the classic anime growing up.
Mhm.
And it just helped started influencing my stories. So when I first debuted on the comic scene, 2016, I had self-published a comic called Dead Planet, which was actually my love for horror movies, for John Carpenter's The Thing, mixed with a little bit of that element of Aliens with the whole corporate ran structure.
Mhm.
You remember like Wayland Yutani?
Mhm.
So then that was just my intro to comics. And then I was just, going around the different conventions. A lot of the times there was a lot of fan art prints that I was selling at different conventions. Um, and just messing around with creating prints. I had birthed the idea for Koncrete Kombat, so it was something that was just sitting there for a while, actually.
Yeah.
So it was actually just a print of a basketball looking like Goku at one point, or like version of Goku. But it was just sitting there. There was a second comic I was supposed to release, which, by the way, people can view it on my Patreon.
Mhm.
It's called Lords of New York. I had
Actually,
never
speaking of
released it.
that, before I forget, I have your Patreon. Let me share it with the
Share it, share
yeah
it,
in
share
the
it.
in the comments here. You guys, if you go follow Sebastian, if I can find my which screen it's on, there it is. Um, you can get a lot of really cool stuff on his Patreon.
So one of the cool things I do for those who just want to support, there's a just a supporter tier of $1 and something and change.
Hmm.
But what I've been doing for that is every once in a while I actually will release a name generator, because
Hmm.
I'm known for coming up with random names. So like people who just need names. So I have random list of names that have been on that donation tier.
Hmm.
But my subscription tier is still starting. 3 for those who are looking for access to artwork and comics.
Hmm.
And so pretty much on Patreon's just been my way to put the comic out for now. But yeah, that's one of the ways I released an unreleased comic, Lords of New York. It was actually a series I had actually written 30, set it up to be for 30 issues. I just
Hmm.
never finished it because things happened. Wrote one issue, drew the whole issue. Then you know how it goes. Life happens. Things fall in the leeway. I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't fully push through with the story, but I am using elements of it to implement into this world of Concrete Combat. So it's
Yeah.
actually grown to help flesh out this story.
Nice.
Um, I've ran 3 conventions, one in person, um, virtual, which
I
were
was
fun. And
part of one of them.
thank you for helping out with that. That was
Yeah, yeah.
again. I love the your animation segment. That was just. I think you
Thank
did a really great job on that too. And I was just like, yes, this is what I wanted in an
you.
animation segment. This is it.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk animation in a little bit, because you
Oh yeah,
mentioned you were into anime, and I believe you studied animation in college, correct?
yeah. I just
Yeah.
haven't done anything with it, which is sad. But I studied it in college. Gives me a more of a love for animation. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, later.
But yeah, I've just had a love for comics, got into it. Wife was just very supportive. Love you, babe, Jesse. And getting into with the pandemic, I really felt that my niche was with the podcast. I had kind of like fell off a little bit with my artwork because obviously there was no conventions, so we were pushing the nerds around podcasts. But then I got back into deep diving into Concrete Combat, fleshing out the story, doing various iterations of it, and then it was born, and
Yeah.
dropped it on my Patreon. It's a pretty much Concrete Combat takes place in a cyberpunk fantasy type world where you follow the story of Micha Gordon and his friends, and from there he's pretty much trying to see that to make sure he either lives up to his family's legacy or is he going to be crushed by it.
Mm. Yeah, I've seen the artwork. By the way, and I think I've said this before. I love the logo. I just think the logo, it has such a fun feel to it. And I'm gonna just share the PDF you sent me, so we can see that logo, and we can see the artwork a bit. Um,
Yeah, that was a collaboration with Joe Ramirez. He goes by Steady Hands.
okay.
So with working with him, he's always the guy I go to with logos. He's always worked with the business and everything. He's actually redesigned a new Nerds logo, did a phenomenal job. So
I
working
saw
with
it
him, I
today.
told him, yeah, it's
Really nice.
he worth every penny with all of it. So I worked with him, great collaborations with working with him, and we put it together, gave him the idea, fleshed it out, sketched it, came up with it, labeled it out, and once that was the idea, it was there. I was like, okay, it gives that feel of that Mortal Kombat mixed with that basketball feeling. But again, it just screamed Concrete Combat Forward, and I was just like, yeah, I can never replace that logo. It is the logo that really defines this story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as you can see, I try to add like the fantasy elements. So it's like you don't have just the human race. You have various different races in there. Um, it's allowed to show a corporate structure, which I've been working on, and I have like a whole Bible set for this world with things that I'm going to introduce in every book as we go on. But this was funny. That character right there with the eye patch,
Hmm.
he's actually based off of one of the D&D characters I played. They call him Misera Jespers.
Okay.
So some of my D&D characters have crossed over into this, and it has been influenced. D&D has helped with the storytelling, and it's just I've written this story. This had to be the fourth iteration of that story, the fourth
Hmm.
version, and this was the one that stuck.
And how many versions did you write? Was it just the fourth and that was it, or?
Well, the fourth was that was it because I had so the original version from what you're seeing right here, the original version was nothing close to this. Didn't
Okay.
have the cyberpunk thing. It was the cyberpunk theme. Didn't have the fantasy theme. It was very anime influenced. I had opened the book with a whole nightmare scene, but that was got trashed. The look for the characters had obviously changed as the theme started to change. I had redesigned the characters a few times. So I've gone, so it was like, okay, I'm not resting on this design. I like this. And even now, as I'm still progressing with the story,
Mhm.
Some versions of the characters have kind of changed, but I'm like, they're my characters. I could write it that, you know what, their clothes changed, they cut their hairstyle. So it's like,
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's been an ever evolving storyline. And even right now, all I write when it comes down to the comic is the storyline beats. I have
Yeah.
up to 18 issues already planned,
Wow.
but as I am progressing through each issue, I'm just using them as bullet points that I want to tackle with each issue, and then going in there, and if something doesn't work, I take off those bullet points, and
Yeah.
if something does, then it's like, and then I'll either put it back on the back burner. If like, if I want to revisit this later, I will. But it's allowed for a lot of fleshing out of the characters. Like for example, the Wolf Girl who is on the Beast Girl who is on the advertisement for this, that is Beatrice, and she's been a fun character who's become like the second protagonist of the story.
Okay.
And she gets introduced in issue 2, and in issue 2, definitely pushing her to be a little bit more of like a badass, but it's like, as sorry, badass. But
It's
it's gonna be
okay.
down the line that you learn more about her character, you learn more about her background, and again, they both see that they're going through these similar experiences. That, okay, am I going to be crushed by my family's legacy, or am I going to live up to it, or actually, build my own legacy within this
Yeah.
world?
There's a lot of interesting themes that you have that you're intertwining here in the story. Um, when you was okay, I want to ask the questions correctly here, because there's so many directions I could go for influences, and like for
Just throw it out
example,
there. Throw
but
it out
but
there.
but for example,
Oh,
your anime, your love of anime, some of the stuff that you're talking about, and this is and before we came on, and maybe we'll talk about it later. We were talking about the difference between a manga and American comics. What you're talking about are themes you see more in manga and anime stories, um, which I think is a reason it's so popular, that style of storytelling. Um, you know, would you say this would fall, if I had to choose like a genre within the manga? It's kind of like a shonen,
yeah.
like age group, target, and stuff, right?
So what I've been aiming for is this, like, I've been trying to find a happy mirror between the two types of storytelling when it comes to telling story in manga and then telling story for like Western comics.
Hmm.
Even with the art style, there's like definitely an influence from anime, but
Yes.
also too, I do still try to go back to also some of that Western influence, like with the heavy shading with the lines and all that. The cross
Hmm.
hatching, you'll see it every once in a while in the ink work.
Hmm.
But what I always loved about manga is that you had stories. I mean, I'm not going to count One Piece because it's still going, but you had stories. Everybody knows One Piece, the One Piece trauma.
Well,
um,
that's big in the news right now. You saw about that, right?
oh God,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we don't have to talk about it. I'm
We
just
don't
saying.
have to talk about it, but it's just, listen, it's not the first one to do it, but it's the most popular one, and unfortunately, it's like
Yeah.
it's just some weird trope they have, but I love the storytelling because you've had anime that have a beginning, middle, and an end.
Hmm.
And then even when they done that, I'm gonna use Naruto for example.
Okay.
Naruto had a beginning, a middle, and an end for its story, but then Shippuden was introduced. Still following the story of Naruto, but now he's older. He's a teenager now.
Yeah.
So you get that progression of growth, which I thought was something that we could definitely do in American comics always, because I was always like, well, what about the kids for these heroes? Like we've had like it'll be interesting to see Spider-Man as a dad right now versus we always got to repeat the whole teenage phase with him. I feel like
Well,
that should fall on the Miles and to get with the new teenage audience. And it's like a lot of us who grew up with Peter, let's see what Peter is gonna, how does he deal with being a superhero dad? But again, that's just me. I can't speak for everybody else, but then Naruto went on to Boruto, which I think is a dumb name. Sorry, I'm not part of marketing, but he is a dad in this point, and you're following the journey of his children.
mhm.
And I thought that was a great evolution of storytelling for characters that people love, and then see them just evolve and grow while introducing new characters without, and you see that growth in that world. So that was always something I always wanted to bring into my storytelling, is just
Mhm.
that progression of that type of character growth and how their decisions affect who they are later in life. I mean, even in Tekken, they did that in the Tekken fighting games, how Jin and Kazuya, Hahachi, how their story evolved throughout the years in the fighting games, and those are type of the stories that I like. I mean, I still love my Marvel. I still love my DC. And I love the fact that with Batman, we got finally Damon Wayne. But I would like to see Damon Wayne start to get, fill in that role. Eventually, maybe one day that Damon Wayne gets older, where he takes over the whole Batman thing, and Bruce is retired Bruce and just sitting there being,
Oh,
curmudgeon out there.
they'll never retire
I
Bruce, I
know
don't think.
they wouldn't, but that's just how I see it. That
Yeah.
and that's what's really influenced that type of storytelling. But I still love the power sets. I still love like the X Men have always been one of my favorite superhero teams. And like I told people, like, yeah, if you love the X Men, My Hero Academia is like the X Men meets Naruto.
Okay, I never really either read or watched Naruto much. I saw a little some of the episodes, but it wasn't like I don't know, maybe it was my age at the time or just my interest. But I've always been an X-Men fan. Um, but I always felt that My Hero Academia was how the X-Men would be if it was created in Japan. And I'm like, okay, yeah, and listen, I I've never read it, but I watch it. I think it's on Hulu is where I'm watching it right now.
It's
Um,
like on Hulu, Crunchyroll. It's almost on
yeah,
everything.
it's on a lot. But I think I'm almost done with season 5, and I know they're in season 6 on Hulu. So I watch it when I have the time, but it's very it really made me rethink the superhero genre.
It did.
You
It
know,
really did.
and and not to start hating on the American comics and stuff, because again, we had the conversation. Listen, manga is a different form of storytelling than American comics. It always has been, but I think right now, with the way manga is and out, and with the outselling, it's really pushing these different genres that you know we don't have in America. Like maybe somewhere you can find a comic book on a kid that's all about wanting to play basketball, but you'll find a freaking manga about that. You could
Yeah.
probably even find one about a kid in competitive fishing if you really wanted to look around. I mean, they just write every topic in different interests. Whereas when we see American, we only think superhero.
And I think that's so you have so in the indies you do have a lot of great books,
Yeah,
but unfortunately you also have a lot of books that copy the superhero formula, which we've all seen.
which I've done.
Um and I think what's been the most successful in doing the superhero formula is The Boys, because they did their own thing where they flipped the superhero genre, and I think that's why it's been so successful with newer readers, because it's kind of taken superhero tropes and flipped it. Now with My Hero, which I
Mhm.
like that you bring it up,
Mhm.
My Hero, I think it's done a great job in characterization, not just with the main characters, but also everybody on the side. Because
Oh
the
yeah.
moment, and spoiler for those, but that moment with All Might when he's fighting the main villain,
Mhm.
and when he has to pass the baton,
Yeah.
um, that moment you felt it.
Yeah.
It was like that moment was like it felt like a Superman moment times 10. I
Mhm.
was like, that is a superhero. The sacrifice that he put in, everything he did, and then you felt the energy through that. And then again, it's accompanied by not just only great animation, because it's transitioned perfectly from the comics, because the manga has some really great artwork in it, but like the
Mhm.
way they animated it and just to catch that vibe, I'm just like that is a moment that a lot of a lot of comic creators and all that should really take a look at the form of the storytelling and how and use it as a study in
Mhm.
how they built this universe of characters and how each character has fit in every piece of the puzzle and how these moments make you really feel for these characters, and it's a
Yeah.
great study of characters.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Um, Now, another influence I see in your work,
Uh-oh.
and no, it's not.
Uh-oh.
Why do you think it sounds bad? I'm here
It's
to.
me.
I'm going to
It's
bring up your
me.
work. I'm going to critique you, and no, it's not. You don't want that. They used to call me the old one of the colleges I worked for. They used to call me the Simon Cowell of the department. Uh,
That's fine. But so listen, I am my worst
no.
critic. If so I follow the teachings of Jake Parker, finished but not perfect, because
Mhm.
I am a perfectionist and I gotta say, like when I look at my art, I'm like, I hate it. I
Oh,
hate it.
dude, I think every artist says that. I listen. I drew the Wiz last night, and I'm like, oh, this is a nice panel. I don't like this panel. Oh, this is a nice panel. Maybe I could have done that better. I'm like, I just got to get it done. I have the same mentality, and I put it up. And no matter, listen, I got a compliment today from someone who said, they really liked the comics. Like they wrote me and said this is, and I'm like, I wrote them back. I said, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for reading. I was very polite, but in my head, I was like, why? Why are you, you know?
Like why are you like this? Check your glasses. No,
But,
yeah, I mean it's like honestly for me, if someone enjoyed the story, even if it's
yeah,
one person, I feel like I've done my job, and it's just
yeah,
that I gotta learn to not be my own worst critic. Just like, you know what, just get down there, get into the dirt, do it, release it. Because if I continue to stay there, it's gonna be like before. Like I believe that's what happened with Lords of New York, and the reason I never released it was because I was just my own worst critic. I completely hated the artwork, and it just never got released. And I was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna do this with this story.
yeah,
I want to get this done, and like I said, when I do the first 3 issues complete, they're gonna go from digital to a printed format in a graphic novel for people.
yeah. No, it's a smart way of working. I will say some of my work has never been completed for the same reason, but also at the same time, I put it down for a year, and oh, I got a new style now. It doesn't look the same, and now I feel like I got to redraw it. So there's lots of things that have kept me from producing work mentally, as opposed to, I mean, there was things. Oh, I don't have the time, like too much work,
Oh yeah,
not feeling well, like life, if you want to use that excuse. But a lot of it was a mental, just I don't want to use the word block because I wasn't blocked. I had the ideas, I was drawing, but things were changing. You change as an artist with everything you take in, and
it's
and I just was like, well, okay, the 10 pages I just drew don't look as good as these next 5 pages. And then the next 5 pages after that will look 1,000 times better in my eyes. And it's like, well, I got to go back to page one to make it look
yeah.
like this. But,
That's
so.
that's the same problem I'm having. So I'm doing a one shot called Dungeon Runners, which takes place in the world of Concrete Combat.
Mhm.
Submitted it for We Suck at Comics. And it's the same thing. I was just like, you know what? I just got to get it done. Gotta get it done because I'm looking back at the pages. I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, and that. I was like, no, just get it done, send it in. And it's like that old meme where it's like you draw the whole body looks perfect, but then you draw that hand, the hand just like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, but I think it's like it's a mental obstacle, not a
Yeah,
mental
that's a
block.
good.
It's
Yeah,
an
obstacles, great
obstacle.
word.
Yeah, it's an obstacle as creators. A lot of the times we got to get over
Mhm.
because again, like I said, when I heard Jake Parker say finished but not perfect, we're always going to sit there strive for perfection, but it's all about just releasing it. You get
Yeah.
it out there, it's in the ether, people see it, let them be the judge of it, and then you know what? You just get on to the next piece. And
Yeah.
you improve with the next piece. You improve with the next piece. The next piece is always going to be better than the last piece.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. But let's get back to
I know
here's what it
that's
is.
my
Here's
pet
what it is.
talks.
No, no. um, no, I see also outside of anime, which could fall into the anime manga genre a little bit, but I also feel like I see a lot of gaming influences in your
Oh
work.
yeah.
Talk about that to me. Like, what are you a big gamer now? Was it a big game? You were a big gamer when you were working on it. What, like, how
So I used to
was it?
be a big gamer, a fan of Tekken, Street Fighter. I always liked their art styles. I always liked the character designs, the
I just like beating
costumes.
up people, so that
That
was what I
too.
was.
But it's funny. I'm getting back into gaming. Got the PlayStation and I picked up the new Street Fighter 5 or 6, whatever it is, and it has an open world concept to it now. They put Metro City in
Mhm.
3D,
Oh
and
wow!
you could go around and just have fight with random people in the street. So I'm having to fight with a mime.
Oh, you're gonna make me spend money now, man. I don't even have a PlayStation, but I wanna play this game.
Yeah, it's fun. I just like I gotta remember to take myself away from it, but it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna have a fight with the hot dog vendor now. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is because I've always loved the character concept designs of gaming characters.
Yeah.
I always felt that there was a degree of detail in like the outfits that always also help fleshed out the characters' personalities when you were playing. Like when you saw Ryu's costume, you felt his personality go through the rough,
Yeah.
gruff fighter. Then you have Chun Li. Like over the years, I would say like her newest outfit, it's like she's more of it fits like kind of her, I don't want to say age, but like she's like, teaching people in the new one like martial arts and everything, which I thought was cool. So it's like it's away from like her police genre and all that. So I always loved just the designs of characters, and and it does have that heavy influence on character concepts for me. I'm not gonna lie, I've used just to play around with AI as concept art to see different things.
Mhm.
So I'll enter like different fighting game character names
Mhm.
just to see different ideas. It's helped with backgrounds too because I'll enter it in just to see different ideas of backgrounds. And I'm like, oh, I like the color palette for this. I like that, which has helped fleshed out characters. Like I'll see different things that I didn't think, and I'll start to use it like reference images, kind of like when you're looking for photos online. So I'll use a combination of photos and everything. So I have like a whole library of fighting game characters, comic characters that I really liked, and as well as I wanted to see these elements kind of mixed together. Like, for example, I wanted to see Vash the Stampede like if he existed in a cyberpunk world.
Okay.
And the concept imagery I got, I was like, okay, I like these buckles right here. I like this jacket. Let me see if I tweak this and that for this character. So like with Beatrice, her design was definitely influenced by a little bit a mix of Roxy from Five Nights at Freddy's beats Luna, but also to like you have the elements of the cybertronic arms that she has, which is going to show some fun stuff for her later with that one. So she has the metallic arms, and the metallic arms kind of were inspired by um you remember the Iron Man from Heroes Reborn that was drawn by Rob Liefeld? He had like the tubes on his back.
I think so. I'd have to see a picture, but yeah, I'm sure I know it.
It's a crazy. I always loved his gloves on
Mhm.
that armor, and it was heavily influenced by that. And then her outfit is a little bit influenced by the Virgin Killer sweater that was making its way on online.
Mhm.
And then her boots, like I always loved my wife's Converse boots.
Okay.
She had these Converse boots, so Beatrice's boots were influenced that by as well. And then her hairstyle was influenced by Ryoko from Tenchi Muyo. That's a little bit of the anime influence.
Okay.
But then what I did, I was like, you know what? I wanted to two-tone the color, and then that's when all that happened. So I use various different things that help with the character concept.
Yeah. Um. So let me ask you this because you brought up AI, and it's a big controversy right
It
now.
is.
What are your thoughts on AI in art in general?
So I have a love-hate relationship with AI. So and it's the same thing that I had a love-hate relationship with we'll call them print monkeys. These are people that were going online, taking images from Google Images, putting them on prints and selling them at conventions. You know the guys I'm talking about.
I use the term print pirates, but
Yeah.
okay. I also use those for other people too, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
go.
So I already knew because I call it a tool because
Okay.
that's what it is. It's a tool.
Hmm.
And I already knew, just like when Photoshop came out, people were going to use it to pretty much flood the market with stuff with eye candy. So a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff that we're seeing is eye candy. Now, the people I have respect for who've taken advantage for AI is actually looking to push their current artwork and push the boundaries. Like I've seen an animator use it to the point where it's just it looks beautiful. Like he's building the bones,
Hmm.
he's going into the programs, taking the different things, using the concept work, looking at it all, and just really like going in there using the combinations of Photoshop, Illustrator, drawing. And I go, that's the respect I have. You're using it for what you need as a tool. I use it for concept ideas. When I need an idea, it's kind of like when you would go to a program and you put in a writing prompt. Like, let me get a writing prompt and I'll build off of that.
Hmm.
Um, so when I enter in a prompt, I just want reference images for, like, let's say, for example, I want to get a cyberpunk type of feel of a church. I'll look for a photo of a church that I like.
Hmm.
So let's say the Cathedral in New York. But then I'm like, how would that look in a cyberpunk world? And then I would just throw it in there, see what the different things are, start to flesh it out. And then if I'll see like elements like, for example, let's say it's like, oh, I like the idea of a neon green cross on the outside of the church.
Okay.
Then I was like, I like this kind of idea of this window pane. So I use it as a tool to help with creating concepts where elements that I could see. So it's kind of like using it as a reference image.
Okay.
And and that's one thing as we learn as artists as we go, like, yeah, sometimes you want to turn to reference images, like, okay, like, yeah, so I'll get like maybe like a New York City subway train, but obviously those are not designed in the cyberpunk style. So I
Hmm.
was like, I want to see what a train would look like in the cyberpunk style. Maybe like, the different elements, look up some cyberpunk stuff. And just from there, just let it build out, do what it does. And that's all I use it as a tool for just reference. Now, there are people who just enter a prompt in and go, well, look what I created.
Yeah.
Technically, you didn't create it. You just entered a prompt. You did nothing. You just
Hmm.
let the program, and you can see it. And I think that that's where it's like where people get upset at, because you have a lot of traditional artists, which again, and I get the reason why they're upset. You work hard, but then all of a sudden, this person who's just throwing out this eye fluff candy that they just entered one prompt and do no real work for it. And they're like, they're getting a 50 million likes. And you're like, well, I drew this image, so I get why people are upset.
Yeah.
But it's like, when digital art first came out, they were
Oh,
crapping on digital artists.
I know. I was one of them. Not crapping on them. I was using digital. I was getting crapped on.
Yeah.
I always get crapped on. That's just the way it goes, you know. But
But the sad truth is this, is that once you and I both know, once Pandora's box is open on something, you can't
mm,
close it.
yeah.
So it's like it's either adapt or go the way of Blockbuster.
Okay. Listen, it's an interesting point of view. I don't bring up AI on my show a lot
Yeah.
uh, because artists have very strong feelings. But because you brought it up, I felt I could ask. Um, you know, I don't use. I've
Mhm.
experimented with it when it first was like coming out. I used a little Mid Journey just to see what it was like, and I'll tell you, I entered in a public domain character that I always liked of Bullet Man, and it gave me some really interesting concepts. Um, and I also used it once to make to create the beginning of a pattern that I wanted to make. I just couldn't find the right like flower, so I kept typing in the different flower and in a style and found what I liked, and I helped turn that
Yeah.
into a pattern. Those are the only two times I have ever used AI in my life. Like I said, it was an experiment.
Yeah, and that's what it started for me.
Mhm.
And like I said, you don't see it in my artwork. I do post some of the concept stuff on my Patreon, like, yeah, this is what I looked at to help with
Mhm.
design. And you can see like in It helped with fleshing out the world around dungeon runners because it takes place in the world of Concrete Combat, but it's outside the city.
Yeah.
So I got to see like a little bit of dystopian buildings and everything that I was looking for. And I saw elements of archways and all that. Like even like I was like, I want to know what a Humvee would look like in a dystopian universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped with and like I said, these images I was getting wasn't 100% what I wanted, but each image I saw had a concept piece in it that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a Frankenstein stuff to create the original concept that I wanted.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, when you're finding pictures of different outfits that you want, like as an animator, they go look at the different references for like, get the pictures of the pants, get a different picture of the shirt. You actually have a whole spreadsheet of stuff to help build the character, so where the concept is going for the character and what has influenced the style of this character.
Yeah.
With AI, I get why people are upset, and honestly, my hot take on it is that I honestly think that the artists whose stuff is fed into it should get a royalty from these companies if they're making money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know what? If you're using my art style to feed your program, I should get some type of royalty for every time my style is used in terms of creating something. But once a tool is released into the market, once a tech is released into the market, there is no stopping it. And that's the thing. It's you could create things to make it better, make it all that. But and again, like I said, I feel that a lot of the upset is about that people are getting their styles fed into it and they feel like they're not getting paid, which I agree. You should get paid for your royalties for doing it. It's kind of like if you put music on Spotify or like, like in or various different things, there's royalties that they get. It's not as much, but it's still getting a royalty, and if it gets played a lot, it builds up over
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, it's
it's a
again,
touchy
it's an
subject.
interesting point of view. It is a very touchy subject. I
You're gonna
do.
come for me with pitchforks.
No, no. You know what?
I'm just
Here's the
joking.
thing. I don't like. Okay, for me as an artist, I don't like a company taking my art and using it for, not that anyone would take my art for this, but the artists that they're pulling from, I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
Okay, for years there have been, I have done things to fight for copyrights, and there are people who we refer to as copy left, which means they don't want copyright so they could do anything with artwork. And as someone who's an artist who will make money off my own creation, I want protection, you know?
and
Um, hold on, let's say just say hi to who's this? Victor Medina. Hello,
Vic.
Victor.
Vic is an
Uh,
awesome artist. I love his
that's
work.
great.
Did some dope Spawn work recently. No, I mean I agree. Like I'm all for the copyright because we do the hard work, and that's why I say I'm all for that. Royalties need to be paid to creators,
Yeah,
but the reality is that the tech is out there,
yeah,
and
and
unfortunately, it's like the only thing we can do is that eventually get the copyright laws where it works in our favor, where you are getting paid for your work.
yeah.
Because let's be real, companies, doesn't matter if you're an artist, doesn't matter if you're a person that works for them in various different departments. Companies are always going to do their hard work to make sure that their CEOs and their shareholders are paid.
Oh,
The little
exactly.
guy is never going to get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
Listen,
it was the big thing with the writer strike when they wanted to do away with people and use AI for to do the voice work. I'm like, listen, no, you should pay someone royalties if you're going to
yeah.
use their voice for everything.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things with the writers' strike was against the use of Chat GBT
Yeah,
in certain things, and I played with it. Again, I experimented with Mid Journey for two things, and I experimented with Chat GPT just to see what it was like. I would never use either professionally.
no,
Now, and the reason I did is because I want to know what I'm talking about. When people say, here's AI, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, just kind of talk from things I've heard. I want to have the actual experience. But it is a tool. It will be used in studios. It will be, and listen, if I could create an AI bot that I could feed my own artwork into so it could do tasks for me that I don't like doing, but it's in my style, I would be okay with that. But the idea is if I took it and said, "Hey, I want to draw the Wiz in three strips, like add the," but then it took I don't know, a George Perez style, and
Yeah,
I'm like, well, that's not what I wanted, like that I'm against. But if I could feed my own artwork in there, my color schemes, my like all this stuff, I would be okay with the use of AI in helping me generate my own art, but
yeah.
not taking someone else's.
And it goes to another thing, and this is why I appreciate because we spoke when I studied animation. One of the
Yeah,
things I appreciated when I went to Full Sail was that when we were learning Maya, there was a tool in there because you had to learn how to create what was called a UV map. A UV map
yeah,
was something that you placed your texture on so it
yeah,
fit around the image. Unfortunately, yeah, there's people who use certain tools as a crux to build their style, which is like you shouldn't really, you still need a degree of skill.
yeah,
You can't rely, and that's why I said well, AI is a tool because with Maya, there was a tool that automatically created UV maps.
yeah,
And I remember the teacher said, do not use this because, there will be a habit that you're going to use it and it's going to be a crux for you and you're not going to learn.
yeah,
And that's my advice to people is like, you're dumping into to AI art, but really still learn to do traditional, still learn to do the things that are needed to flesh out an image because AI is never going to be 100% perfect. You still are
no,
going to need to have a human element. That's why
yeah,
it's like you said, when I experimented with it, I saw the limitations for it already.
mhm,
And I knew and I forecasted was that I already know that there's a lot of people who are going to be like, well, I'm an artist, but it's like, okay, but fix this, and that. Can you fix this? Can you go back into a program to make this look? And like,
mhm,
well, I don't know how to do that. Like, then it's like, then you're not doing anything.
yeah,
Like I said, I give a shout out to the dude who I know who uses it, but yet he doesn't depend on it. He'll use it to like create a base layer for something. He'll go in there, see what he likes, and then it's like it's just you'll see all these elements, and then he makes it look like a beautiful image because in his style, he's still going in there doing the digital drawing, going in there doing all the stuff, and it's like he's not trying to replicate anybody's style, and that's the whole thing. Like a lot of people's like, well, I want to draw like, and it happens too with traditional art where a lot of people were like, I want to draw like Joe Madura. I'm like, but draw like you. Joe couldn't influence you, but draw like you. What is
yeah,
your style?
yeah, yeah,
Joe Mad's style made him money. That is his style. But what is your style that defines you? Whereas like, oh, I'm just a Joe Mad copycat.
yeah. Listen, it's a long time. We're gonna get off the
Yeah, yeah,
topic,
we're gonna go.
but it's an
We're on the.
interesting.
It's a long journey topic.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And but since you mentioned animation, we brought it up. Let's talk a little bit about anime. So obviously, you said you went to Full Sail, which I almost went to. Um, and, but and you studied 3D, obviously with using Maya. Now, first off, why 3D? And then what did you try to work in the field, or what did you do after with 3D?
So with 3D, and I did a little bit of work in it. I didn't
Mm,
really pursue it too much, which I should have. But obviously also too, it's your computer and if you ever saw the license for Maya, it's pretty expensive. So
yeah,
I'm glad they have Blender now. So I gotta go back and relearn all that stuff. But I, I had chose 3D because again, I love the fighting game styles. I loved all that. I wanted to learn. It became more about one. I wanted my degree because I
mm.
went to New York Institute, never got my degree, had to drop out. But I was like, you know what? I want
All
my
those
degree.
stories about New York
Yeah,
Institute that I could tell you.
we we could pull up a couple of brewskis and talk about it. So I wanted to get my degree. Full Sail at the time was the most appealing because I also, at one point when I lived in Brooklyn, I thought about going to the Art Institute. Thank God, because the person who was interviewing me and showing me around the campus, she wanted to push me onto typography. I wasn't interested in typography.
Yeah.
But 3D, it was interesting because it still felt in the animation. So it was 2D and 3D that I learned at full sail together.
Hmm.
Now with learning Maya, it was Maya's a fickle compute program. There were times I wanted to chuck it, but
I don't do 3D anymore for a reason.
oh my god, when you had to learn to do verts and if it didn't implement the vert right, because there's the thing again, you don't depend on the program. You
It,
have to know.
I will say this: before I got into Maya, and I didn't use Maya professionally. I used 3D Studio Max professionally because Maya was used out on the West Coast. Here on the East Coast, 3D Studio Max was used when I was in the industry doing that stuff. And I hated every minute of 3D.
I know.
Hated every minute of it.
Listen, spoken like someone who's done 3D, and it's like, there are a lot of things like there were things I liked about it, but there were a lot of things I hated about it. And it was a spending a lot of time making sure I don't throw my computer out the window. That's why I go with if anybody wants to learn the appreciation of using your tools and tech and learning from scratch, study Maya. You're gonna be like, you know what? Yeah, I gotta learn how to use these tools. I got because it's like it was the type of program that if you use the automated tools, it will crash on you and it will mess up everything. And again, that's why the professors there, I appreciate it when they were like, yeah, don't rely on the automated tools because you do that, you're going to think you're going to use it as a crux. But with learning with Maya, you had to really learn deep. You had to because like there was a lot of searching for verts, and I could count that there was countless sleepless nights when it messed up something. There was always something wrong, always. I remember I had to lock in a UV map. So one side looked perfect, the other side looked like someone took a baseball bat to a window. You know what I'm talking about, messing with 3D.
Yeah.
And it was like it was because one simple vert was off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun learning animation. Tough at times. I got more love too for 2D animation because that's when I learned a lot about the squish and stretch techniques, and it actually transitioned into from 2D to 3D because you used a lot of those techniques too. And people are like, well, it's simple. The model's built for you, but it's like, no, you got to build the model.
Mhm.
You got to build the individual pieces of the model because it's not just one base. Then you got to build the bones for the model. On top of building the bones for the model, you got to attach the skin. And if the skin is not attached perfectly, obviously it's gonna look
Yeah.
weird. Then you got to make sure, and this is when anatomy comes into place because you got to study human movement.
Mhm.
Because if the movements don't look natural, it's like and that's why it's with a degree with everything when it comes to art, when it comes to traditional drawing, when it comes to digital, you have to know a degree of um anatomy. That's why it's like you see a bunch of crappy AI art because a lot of these guys don't study anatomy. I was like, dude, if you had studied anatomy, you would know it doesn't have to look like this. But again, I'm not going to get back into AI. But yeah, it was always fun. It was a headache, but it was fun. It was great to learn. I'm glad I got my degree in it, and
Yeah.
it just gave me much more of a deeper love and appreciation for animators who came before me during my time and after me who have careers now. I did pursue a career in it, but unfortunately, it was 2019. I graduated. I had just gotten let go from my job. I couldn't focus a lot of the time like I wanted to. I had used 3D for designing a booth that was at BeautyCon.
Okay.
I was one of the guys who designed the Alcon booth, so I actually created the 3D render of the booth,
Hmm.
but I won't name the company. It just wasn't a happy relationship because I guess they didn't understand what I was doing with 3D at the time. They thought that I was just like a Photoshop render guy, but I was like, no, these things take time because you have to put the stuff on there. I have to render it through a 3D program. It creates the renders, and depending on what it's rendering at, these could take a while. It's not that
Yeah.
something I could whip up in 5 seconds. Here it goes, show it to the client. So that stopped from there. Then we were supposed to pursue animation, with Ambient, but then the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then right there, there was nothing else that came in. So I had no work under my belt, but then I was like, yeah, and then my license for mine expired. And like I said, that's when I looked at the license. I was like, no. I mean, have you ever heard of a program called Nuke, Mike?
Called what?
Nuke.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I got to use Nuke, and then when I went to go see the license for it, I was like, no, I can't afford that.
A lot of this, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those softwares, even for 2D, you get priced out of. That's why, people, no matter how much they hate the subscription model, love Adobe. The software is, reasonably priced, to be honest with you, for everything you pay, especially if you have an educational background, then you could get the educational prices. But what are you paying? Something like, I think it's something like $52 or $60 a month. It is to have access to the entire Adobe suite.
Yeah,
It's a
and
relatively good price. I've been doing my weekly Monday night live draws. I've been working in Adobe Animate. I've been doing a lot of Photoshop lately because I'm building up to an animation. But actually, give me a second. Maybe I'll show you. You'll like it. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Let me open up Adobe Animate, and then I'll.
So I looked it up just for those who are interested. So Maya costs, if you're paying a monthly subscription, $235, but then now they have a yearly subscription, which is $1875.
Wow.
And then you could subscribe for 3 years for $56.25.
Wow, that is a bit, but it, like, if you look at Harmony, which is a 2D animation software, that is like $700 a year.
Oof.
So for me using Adobe Animate, which isn't mainstream these days anymore, it's more used for like web stuff still, and that's about it. It's what's it called? It's worth it, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the image that I want to show. Like, okay, here's something that I did. This is the quickest thing I got that I'll show. Let me just go into right here into the library. What is going on already? I don't like this at all.
It's funny. I was trying to search for Nuke, and it's giving me nukes.
I don't. You know what? I don't know if people still use that. To be honest, I don't follow 3D like I used to.
Well, this was more for like a Oh damn, I'm messing up my thing now. This is great.
Uh-oh.
No, it was more for my tablet. I gotta get a whole new HDMI for it. No, so that's dope.
Yeah.
So Nuke was like what do they call it? It was used for like roto and all that. So like like the scene with Planet of the Apes where they had all the gorillas on the bridge.
I haven't seen all of the new movies. If you're talking about which one?
The newer ones. Anyway. I don't remember which one it was with the bridge, but like, if you had a scene where it's just like it was a bunch of gorillas on the bridge. It was like you took a scene that had five, and then it allowed you to create folders where it looked like it was multiple gorillas for like live action. So it was used for a lot of live action stuff. It wasn't 3D. It was using for like implementing 3D elements or like visual effects into like film and all that and everything. It was like a very advanced version of like Dreamweaver and all that because of how the program worked and how it really gave me a big perspective of what a lot of these people in the 3D and the computer graphics industry do in Hollywood, because it's definitely it's a program that they definitely use in studios.
Yeah. I gave up on 3D back professionally in 2001 or 2002. So I haven't followed the 3D industry. I'm actually more of a 2D guy.
Yeah.
And this program I was using, this is Adobe Animate, used to be called Adobe Flash. I've been using since it was Macromedia Flash. Um, so and I did, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So my job was doing was animating on animating 2D characters, back when they had the Flash web banners and stuff. But this is just a little turnaround I did of a character which is moving slow. There
There
it
you
goes.
go.
So
Yeah, I remember when those programs came out. I was like,
yeah.
yeah.
So this is what I did for one of the stuff, and he's one of the characters I'm using, and this is what you guys can see on my Monday Night Live draws. And here's something else I've been working on. So if I go back, this is kind of an animatic I'm building slash storyboard. Um, which it was this is something written by Dawes Butler. He used to voice like Yogi Bear and all those guys. And my friend Joe Bev, who's a voice actor and was a student of Dawes, recorded this. I'm not going to play the audio right now, but you could see, it's about an anime. And the idea of this right here is this guy is walking through an old style animation studio, but I'm going through people in animation history that I love. So I got Walt Disney looking over Ub Iwerks's uh, shoulder. You got Ed Benedict, who designed a lot of cool Hanna-Barbera characters. Down here is Chuck Jones. He's holding a carrot that he's drawing with. Then in here we got the recording studio where Dawes will be in there with my friend Joe. Then we got Mike Maltese, who wrote a lot of the great cartoons. Um, and as we move in here, that's Tex Avery editing, with me hanging out with Tex, because who else would I hang out with? And then we got, whoops, let's go back. Then we got Hanna-Barbera chasing a cat and a mouse since they created Tom and Jerry. And then he's going to go, there's inside the writer's room, there's a writer in there, and he's going to come busting into the door, which is opening up now. And he says, hello. And he comes and waves, and then it cuts to him there. And I got to add more to it. But it's about a 1 minute animation. But I'm using this to create, and I'm having a lot of fun. I love animation, but I love 2D. I will do this. I won't
You,
do. I won't pick up Maya or 3D Max or whatever is popular now. Not
you
even
know,
Blender. And I
you
want to
know,
learn Blender.
I think Blender is a fun program to learn because I've seen people. It's a happy mirror between 2D and 3D because I've seen some people do some really fantastic 2D work
Yeah.
in Blender.
Mm.
And the great thing is because since Blender is community based, it's one of those programs that's free to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
I sent you Nuke. So Nuke is actually a rotoscoping program from
Mhm.
Foundry.
What is this one?
That's Nuke. It's from
Okay.
Foundry, and yeah, and this is why I said why we get priced out because the price for Nuke yearly, I mean it's yearly, but the basic subscription is $34.69.
Jeez.
But again, is that's the annual subscription, the quarterly rental, 18.99 quarter. But like it's a program that if you're going to be getting into compositing, like it allows you to take live action scenes, put 3D in there, or create the images like that you see a movie. So this is actually it's Hollywood studio stuff that they use for in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But again, that's if you're getting into that world and all that. And it was, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was fun using that program.
Mhm.
But it was a lot of tech stuff that you do have to learn.
Yeah.
And again, it made me so this is what I feel as a creator when you're new in the industry and everything. It's definitely take a class because it makes you appreciate learning your tools, learning the
Mhm.
craft, and all the stuff that people, whether they were traditional or graphic artists, the digital artists, it makes you appreciate it and it makes you want to learn more about your tools. I've
Mhm.
always been about don't be a master professional, be a master student
Yeah.
because when you're a professional, you stop learning. Whereas if you're a master student, you're going to continue to learn and you're going to continue wanting to evolve.
Yeah.
Because like our world, everything is always evolving. Technology is evolving, the tools we use, the way we animate. Like you said, you're a big fan of 2D, and I'm a big fan of 2D anime. Like, bro, I grew up on 2D animation. I tell you that I love a lot of the old school animations and everything. But like I said, I'm very appreciative with the Happy Mirror when I see, because like I see a lot of anime that's starting to try to cross over to 3D, and not a lot of them are doing well.
Yeah.
It's only those that can actually still give respect to that 2D animation feel that I see that are always doing well and cross over with fans, versus those like, have you have you ever seen the animation Berserk?
I have seen clips to the show. I have never watched it though. Like I so
So Berserk, the manga, phenomenal artist. I mean, shout out to the artist, who, but unfortunately, may he rest in peace. He really, like, the detail in his scenes were crazy
I
for the
actually have
manga.
a couple of the books. I've never read them either, but they were given to me, and I'm like, I'll check them out one day, and I just haven't yet.
Yeah, the story the story is ultra violent, but it's like, as terms of the work is beautiful.
Yeah.
The animation, when they did the animation, the original one,
Mhm.
again, that 2D animation was beautiful. Then a lot of people got excited because Berserk was returning and they did a new show. They went fully 3D animation, and people hated it. It was the worst thing ever. South Park was better animated.
You know, I want to say this. When you look at those type of things, I think a lot of people get angry not because it went to 3D, but the nostalgic factor that it's not what they remember. I'm not saying it wasn't poorly
Oh.
animated. I'd have to see the 3D to say that.
So I'm gonna give you an example. The reason why I say South Park was better animated. You know
Yeah,
how the South Park characters walk around, right?
yeah.
There is literally a scene where the main character in the 3D version looks like he's a South Park character hopping away.
Oh wow. Okay.
And because at the time I studied 3D, I
Mm,
was like, that was not properly animated in terms of the walk animation.
yeah.
So that's why I was like, I crap on it.
No, listen. I haven't seen it. I can't comment on. I just feel when people don't like stuff
Yeah.
from a certain okay, great example, the Kevin Smith He-Man stuff that came out, all right, on Netflix. People are like, oh, I can't wait for a new He-Man. They find out that it's a Tila focused show, and it's not good to people. Now, I thought the artwork was beautiful. I will say I wasn't a fan of the story, and not because Tila was the main character. I just thought they didn't do a good story in the first season. The second season was a bit better, but with still gorgeous artwork. What I loved about that show, and I will say this, and what was that? Revelations, I believe it was, or is that the new one that's coming out? I don't
I think that's
remember.
the new one.
New one.
It's so much He-Man
Yeah,
content coming
I
out
don't
now.
remember. But what I loved about that show was they really went back and looked at the old toy art and all this, and they threw in all this stuff that I only have, seen on the back of my packages, or like He-Man books that I had as a kid. So I was like, that's really cool. Story wise, I thought it was terrible. Art wise, I thought it was beautiful. Now the new one that's coming out, I don't know. Do I really want to see it? I haven't decided yet, but I am a huge He-Man fan, so there's a good chance I'll watch it. But that 3D one that Netflix did, that people were like, it's going to be bad, was one of the best He-Man shows I ever watched.
I
You
heard that
know?
one was really, and again, so I've gotten into this point, and it happened because of the Marvels.
Mhm.
Because I know, a lot of people were crapping on the Marvels. I love the movie, and a lot of the people I found out that were crapping on it, who are the same people that crap on all this stuff, is like, they don't see this stuff. They read about it, and it's like, I'm just gonna harp in my 2 cents. And I've started calling people like, well, did you see it?
I have
So
not seen it.
no, I'm not
No,
saying,
no,
I'm
no, no.
saying
I know,
in
but I'm going to
general with
say it's probably
everything.
crap. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's
I know where you live, Mike. No, no, it's like, I remember, and I was having a conversation, so I was like, "Did you see it?" And it's like, if you didn't see it, so then, I mean, how can you criticize something that you didn't see? I
yeah.
don't try to criticize stuff like, for example, a lot of people go, "Well, you criticize Zack Snyder stuff," because, like, yes, I sat down and I've watched his stuff.
Mhm.
I have nothing against Zack Snyder, and I've told people he gives you beautiful cinematic shots. We'll use Rebel Moon for example,
I haven't
and I'm
seen
not
that
sure you've
yet,
seen it.
but don't spoil
Don't
it.
worry, I'm not going to spoil it. This is a non-spoiler review. So,
Okay.
in terms of Zack Snyder's visual eye for giving you beautiful shots and a beautiful surrounding and a beautiful world,
Yeah.
I give him kudos to that. He
Okay.
gives that to you.
Yep.
He is, to me, a perfect cinematographer.
Okay.
As far as a storyteller goes, I always question.
Mhm.
I felt the story and the characters felt flat. I've seen this story before.
Mhm.
I don't think you did a great version of it. Like Watchmen was good, but Watchmen he followed the book.
Yeah.
Story and visual was a beautiful movie. I
Mhm.
think it was a little bit ahead of its time, just like the comic, which changed the industry.
Yeah.
But with Rebel Moon, and I told people this, I think he should have done it as a TV show to give him time to flesh out the characters. I don't want to be told that wait for the director's cut because
Mhm.
to me then that you gave up story because you're more focused on beautiful shots. And just like with AI, his crutch is that he relies too much on slow-mo shots.
Okay.
I
I listen. I
appreciate
could see everything you're saying. I'm
yeah.
not
Okay.
disagreeing, but um, it's a it's I think we could say that about almost any director or anybody. Like, I'm not a James Gunn fan. He's got the new DC universe. He's in charge of it. I am a DC fan. I am very upset by this. I thought his Suicide Squad movie was terrible. I did not like Peacemaker. Um, I wasn't really a fan of his Guardians movies. The first one I could sit through and thought it was, hey, this is something new we haven't seen. This is fun. But by the second one, the third one, and that damn Christmas holiday special, I thought, why does this guy get money to make this stuff? That's kind of how I felt. And my reasoning is, and you know this about me, I am story focused. I want a good story, but he sacrifices story for humor, and I don't want to see that in characters that I love. I want to see the and to your point about making was it Rebel Moon
Yeah, Rebel Moon.
a TV series, I feel most superhero type of or sci-fi, something that would be a book, a comic book, that should be in a TV series for character development, for the ability to tell. Because comics, whether you read them, in a 3-4 panel daily like they used to have back in the
Oh yeah.
newspaper,
The
or
funny
you read
pages.
it in a comic strip, or a comic book, it's a serialized way of storytelling. Movies don't give you that serialized storytelling anymore. I would love if they did something serialized where it's like, hey, we're going to shoot a 10 or 12-hour movie, and then we're going to release 2 hours a month, or something, and you have a reason, and then this way you could sit, and it's one of the reasons, like, yeah, I binge stuff a lot, but I usually binge things I haven't watched before. I mean, I
Yeah.
usually binge stuff I've watched before because I don't care. I've seen it. The stuff that I haven't seen before, I try not to binge because I like that time to think about what's going to happen next week. What's going to, I may say, oh, I'm going to wait 2 hours before I watch the next episode, but it gives me time to take it in and think about it.
Yeah.
um these other shows or movies, you don't have enough time. You really
I
don't have enough time.
I felt that about so I'm probably one of the few people too who liked Eternals, but I feel I feel Eternals should have been a TV show.
Yeah, I can see that totally.
And the reason I say that is that there was too much lore
Mm,
for these characters to condense into a movie.
yeah.
And I feel that that's where you really it was too many characters. I get what they were trying to do. You were trying to use this to break away from some of the superhero genre that you were doing. It was a little bit more mature than your standard Marvel movie in some ways, but I feel that that would have been perfect as a TV show.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no. Whereas like Secret Invasion with Sam Jackson, I felt that would have been much more of a fun action-packed spy movie.
Okay, I haven't seen that, but I will tell you why I think Eternals failed, and this happens to a lot of Marvel movies. They're not paying tribute to the creators. Maybe Stan, if you will, because Stan created a lot of, but like people, and I will say, Doctor Strange did pay tribute to Ditko in the when he was meeting Dormammu and stuff. But like anything that Kirby did, it's like an FU, like studios give an FU to Kirby all the time. They did it. Even DC did it. Zack Snyder did it with the Dark Side stuff. They didn't do it properly. Marvel and Captain America was a good film, the first one. Okay. Well, actually, all the Captain Americas are pretty decent, but Captain America, you saw how they paid tribute to Kirby. You didn't really see it in Thor much.
Yeah, there's a whole love-hate relationship. Like the only Thor movie for me that was good was Ragnarok. I didn't like the last Thor movie, and then I mean that I could go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I felt like the Marvels when I was talking about it. I feel like it was one of the better Marvel movies that came out in a long time because I feel like Doctor Strange mom missed the mark, where Spider-Man did for the multiverse what it should have been done. Loki did a phenomenal job. I love the Batman movie that had Rob Pattinson because it gave us a Batman we haven't seen on screen before, the Detective Batman. And I agree, like some of these works don't pay tribute to Kirby, but like I said, I really feel Eternals. The reason it missed its mark with people is because it was too dense,
Yeah.
and it would have done better as a show.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. Again, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
But the reason I bring Kirby up, all right, and this is one of the main things. Everybody loves the DC animated universe, all right, but it wasn't until like Batman the animated series its own thing, but it wasn't until they created Superman cartoon and decided that it was going to be a Kirby inspired, that Darkseid was going to be the big bad. How are they going to do this? And they brought Kirby-esque sci-fi into his story, that the show was like, oh my god, this is really, they got something here. And then and that transferred over into the Justice League Unlimited, and some movies that follow. Now I know I'm not saying all I want is that version, because I haven't watched it in maybe a good year and a half. I'll be honest
yeah.
with you. I used to watch it all the time. I'm a little tired of it myself. I'd like to see some new things. But there's not one person who says, "Oh, I hated Batman the animated series. I hated Superman the animated series. I hated Justice League. I haven't met
Because
one
if
person
they
saying that."
because if they say that, Kevin Conroy will come for you from the grave and be like, "What are you talking about?" Love you, Kevin.
But
Rest in peace. Um,
but that's the thing. It was such
yeah,
um,
it was a good
good influence.
storytelling.
Yeah, good storytelling, good use of the characters. The people who created them were fans, you know.
And I
And go ahead. I'll let
yeah,
you.
and so this is why I do highly respect Marvel because if you notice, Deadpool's the only movie we're getting this year, and unfortunately, it took the writer strike, and it took that the fact that there was a couple of missed marks with movies. And again, I applaud them for pushing back everything to reevaluate how they were doing their storytelling. Um, yes, it has to go to a degree where you have some of the fans, some of the people who respect the material, because those are the ones that are giving you the good stories.
Mhm.
But when you have people where it's just like Taika, I was happy with Thor Ragnarok
Mhm.
because I thought it was fun. But then when he did Thor Love and Thunder, he sacrificed too much comedy. And you talk about James Gunn,
Yeah.
this movie, I was it wasn't a fun movie. It got to the point where like there was that whole thing with the running joke with the goats. I started
Yeah.
to grip my teeth. I'm like, dude, this is getting boring. You wasted a great villain like Gore, and
Yeah.
then the problem is now that you have Taika jumping on that Hollywood bandwagon saying, "Oh, superhero movies is like, oh, I only did it because of the check." And I
Yeah.
think that unfortunately you're getting a lot of people now because Marvel was able to do what they did all the way up until Endgame at the time. That a lot of people
Mhm.
now are like, well, I just want to collect the check or have it under my resume. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're sacrificing history of characters.
Mhm.
You're sacrificing a lot of stuff. Like, for example, I'm one of the few people who did like She-Hulk, but I hated the last episode. I did not like the last episode. I felt like the series should have ended at the high that it did when Daredevil made that appearance in that last episode, because it went from that whole high and then that last episode just like dropped.
I don't know. I watched the first episode, thought it was garbage. I thought it should have ended at the first script read, and they should
Um,
have never filmed anything.
I I felt like that it paid a little bit homage to a lot of the stuff that happened in the comics because of who Jennifer Walters was in the comics.
Yeah,
But that last episode it went too meta, and I was like, you shouldn't have done it that way.
yeah.
Um I I harped in on the DC universe. Like, I thought Man of Steel was okay in the beginning. I felt like we should have got Man of Steel 2 to explain why Superman did and give that redemption of him killing Zod, because it's like, okay, I think this was the first movie really you have Superman kind of killing someone. He snapped Zod's neck.
Mm.
And it's like he obviously was troubled by it, but I needed Cavill to be given that part to grow into Superman, and he wasn't. He was robbed
Yeah,
from that
yeah. No, no,
because
absolutely.
I felt like Ben Affleck was robbed from being Batman because he should have been given his solo movie first before you threw Batman in with all these other characters.
You see, my thing is, I don't think Superman should have a movie. I don't think Batman should have a movie. I don't think Wonder Woman should have a
We've
movie.
had too many.
I think everyone knows who they are by now. I think they should have followed a Marvel, thing. Take a B-listed character like they took Iron Man, and a lot of Marvel stuff is very tech sci-fi. DC has great magical characters. I've said this before on the show. I think I may have even talked about it with you. I think they should have started with a Doctor Fate film. I think they should have started with a really interesting magical character, and not because he's my favorite magical character, just because he would have been a B character that some people don't know about, but the comic fans know about. They could have done some really cool characters, and what would have happened is having it be a magic story could have introduced mythology, could have introduced Aquaman, Hawkman, Shazam, even though he's still Captain Marvel to me. Like characters like that could have then had guest appearances of,
You know,
Superman, Batman, even the Flash, but not the Flash
you,
we got.
you know what you described to me?
What?
The Arrowverse.
Yes and no, but
Yeah, no,
the
I get what you.
Arrowverse. Listen, I'm rewatching Arrow right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. Ra's al Ghul's on my other monitor. I'm in season. Hold on. What episode is this? I am in season. Don't play it. Oh, I'm in
No, I
season
seen the
3,
I seen the
episode
whole.
16.
Listen,
Yeah.
I've watched the whole Arrowverse. I,
Mhm.
I to this day would die and say that that was the true DC universe
Mhm.
for
Well,
live
I haven't
action.
finished the Flash yet. I haven't finished Legends of Tomorrow, and I haven't finished Supergirl. I've only watched the Arrow straight through. But what they did was the Arrow is the Arrow because they couldn't get Batman, because it's every freaking Batman villain is coming into the Arrowverse, really. And then in the spin-offs you have, the Flash, and I actually enjoyed Legends of Tomorrow. I thought it was fun, but I never finished the series. But just speaking of fun, and this is why I won't say I thoroughly enjoyed the film, but you brought up Thor Love and Thunder. I thought it was a bad movie,
It
but
is.
I enjoyed it as a bad movie. It was almost like watching like those old B movies to me, just done with better graphics. So, but also, and here's how I got through it. I gave up caring. I gave up caring. Like, I have said this to you. I am no longer in the target audience of these movies. They want, teenagers, they want young adults, people going out on dates. I have every freaking streaming service. I wait for everything to come out because I don't want to be around people anymore in theaters. They
I
it's
feel
too
you.
much
Same.
money, and people suck. But
Yes.
it's no, I'm sorry, but I don't need to.
Yeah. No. No.
Last
No.
last time
It's
I was
true.
at the
It's
Alamo,
true.
somebody was looking at their phone with their light bright up,
Oh
like 3
God.
seats from me. Why am I going to pay $18 a ticket plus, snacks or whatever,
So
and
so the
end up
most
with a
beautiful part so the most beautiful part living in Bumble Square where I'm at is that the theater I go to whenever I go see a movie, it is empty. I don't have to do it because I know what
yeah,
you're talking about because I hated those people. I
yeah,
hate it, and that made me hate going to the movie
yeah,
theaters because of that.
yeah. I can't take. I want to. I'm paying for an experience, and I can't have the experience because someone's on their phone, or they bring a kid to a movie they shouldn't. It's too young to be at, and they're crying the whole time, and it's just I don't want to be the guy complaining at the theater. I'll complain on the air now, but but no, but that was the thing. Like I came to realize I wasn't the target audience for the new Star Wars. I don't think anybody is actually the target audience for the new Star Wars. I wasn't the target audience for Man of Steel. Any of those movies, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm going to be 48 next month. You
Oh,
know,
Mike, stop! You're young.
no,
Stop it.
I'm not saying I'm
I'm
old.
I'm
I'm just
I'm gonna
saying
I'm gonna be 42. Come on.
no. But what I'm what I'm saying is I'm not the movie going audience. I'm not the one who goes to the theater
Oh,
anymore.
you.
That's what they want. So I'm not having the movies made for me. So why should I care? Excuse me, if a character that I love, and I'll use Superman because I love Superman, and literally behind me is a bunch of action figures and stuff of Superman. Like I love the character so much, right? But why should I care if they make a movie about him and it's bad when I could go look at the comic book I enjoyed, 2 years ago or something. I can go pull out a DVD, look it up on streaming, and watch the version that or read the version that I enjoy. And you give this to whoever's out there, and if they like it, awesome,
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
it's like this. You're always going to get people who don't like it.
Mhm.
And like I said, those are legit reasons why you don't
Yeah,
like it. You understand it.
yeah,
But when I look at people who are like they're just complaining to complain because it's the most popular thing to do, it's like,
yeah.
and then you ask them, well, did you watch it? Why are you complaining? What are your like? When I see stuff like, oh, the MCU, I'm like, so you hate female characters? And it's like when I see stuff like that, it's like, what is your reason to be upset about that?
Okay.
If you're telling me that I didn't like the story, if you give me legit reasons of why, like I didn't like the pacing here, I didn't like there, like I go, for example, like there are a lot of Snyder fans who just love Snyder.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
can do
no,
no wrong. But I'm like, listen, I could sit there and Snyder's going to get paid the big bucks anyway, but I could sit there and say, listen, he's a beautiful cinematographer. He's given us some great stories and some points, but there are a lot of stories he's kind of pooped the bed with. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, it's a beautiful movie, but poop is still poop.
yeah, yeah. Can I listen? Can we get back to the term
Yes, yes,
no, I want to get back to the term MCU that you used, and
yeah.
then I want to get to some comments in a moment. But I understand the terminology for it, and not, and I don't think it goes to hating women as characters, at least not for me.
No,
Okay, I grew up reading a lot of female comic led or female led comic books. I read, well, I didn't read She-Hulk regularly, more as a guest appearance, but you know, I read Miss Marvel before she became Captain Marvel. I read those
yeah.
books. I read Wonder Woman. I read Zatanna. I read whatever. If it was a good story, I kept reading. It was when it got bad. The reason I think people are calling it MCU, and I don't refer to it this way unless I'm doing it in a joking fashion with friends. But I think the reason that they are referring to it is because the progression in film is to create these female led characters, which, okay, awesome. Give me a good female led story. But what they're doing is while they bring in the females, they are destroying and lowering the ability of the men to make the females look stronger. I think if they could take a male and female character and make them equal in ability, like hold on, I know
I
you're about to say something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know you're about to, but hold on, let me just say this. when you look at something like Captain Marvel, and again, I read it when she was Miss Marvel. I had no problem with her becoming Captain Marvel, but when you take the character and she's perfect, and they use the term Mary Sue all the time. I'm not using that term, but when she was perfect at everything she did and just basically needed to like almost like turn on her suit in a way, you take away the character development. When she was Miss Marvel, she traveled with Captain Marvel. It was almost this Doctor Who kind of companion type of storyline, and there was a love interest forming. And when you look at Captain Marvel, it was I could do anything because I'm a woman. And I think the story of someone maybe dying that you loved would be a stronger motivation for her than, oh, well, I'm not allowed to fly planes because I'm a woman. Well, screw you. I'm going to fly a plane. And that's what I did not like about it. I thought it was poor storytelling. And they do that in every story. That was my issue with She-Hulk, was you don't understand you don't understand anger because you're not a woman. There's a character who's been around here for like 14 years who learned how to balance his anger with his intelligence. I mean, and
Well, that's
she's
a
knocking him.
well, the whole thing with that, because with Captain America, I could understand because over the years, and again, it's just like how you said, like target audience and everything.
Yeah.
When it came down with Captain Marvel, and I believe this really transitioned over from the comics, is that they were setting her up to be Marvel Superman.
No,
That
and I
was for
get
her.
that.
And now when it comes with She-Hulk, and
Mhm.
this is the thing with a lot of guys who said, it's like She-Hulk called out to a lot more of women because what She-Hulk was doing, and again, I had these conversations with my wife.
Mhm.
It was actually calling out to problems that women do deal with,
And I
and I was
get
like,
that. And I
and and
respect that.
and for me, the banter that she had with Bruce
Mhm.
was kind of like the banter sometimes I have with my cousin, who's like my
Okay.
sister,
Yeah.
and that's why I was like, okay, I saw the fun banter, and that's what I saw.
I didn't
Um,
see it that way.
when I see people go to MCU, it's like it's not taken into account. Someone was like, well, I think this with writing with this, with that. I see it with always these people where there's like it's in a I don't want to it's in a very negative light where it's
Yeah.
like it's in a dark place that you and I would never even go to as fans because we'll sit there like, well, I kind of like we'll figure out ways to tweak it where it fits for people, but these are people who are just like it's just I want my female as a damsel in distress. She can't be stronger than men. Woman can't beat up men. This. I was
Yeah.
like, but we are trying to help with kind of change a archetype story that was told for so many years. I mean, at the time of a lot of these characters came out, there were not many female characters at the forefront, and that's why
Mhm.
one of the things why I gravitated towards the X-Men for
Mhm.
many years as a comic is because they carried it with equals. And at the time, Marvel didn't have access to the X-Men characters.
Yeah.
Now that they have access eventually, right? But it's like, and I saw a comment, someone said Iron Man wasn't a B-list hero. For many years Iron Man was, because it was either X-Men or Spider-Man in the Marvel universe for a long
Well,
time.
let me say this. The reason I called him a B-list character is because the modern movie-going audience had no clue who
Yeah,
Iron Man was before he came
if
out.
you were a comic
If
book
you
fan, you
if
did.
you were a comic fan, I read Iron Man regularly throughout the 80s and early 90s. I know Iron Man, but it's different to, and I was talking to him as a movie-going
Yeah,
audience. Um,
but I think that's like when it comes down to it, at the time when the comics came out and Marvel didn't have the movie rights for a lot of their stuff, there's no secret that for a long time the stories were X-Men and Spider-Man. And Marvel, when they create the MCU, didn't have access to those characters, and they did have a lot of strong female characters they didn't have access to that
yeah,
held their own. They had to recreate that in a lot of characters that were either sidekicks
yeah,
or second string characters along the way. Because like Black Widow, for me, for a lot of the times when you looked at the Captain America comic books, first of all, she started as a villain, but then she was like a sidekick for Captain America for a
mhm,
while. The movies pushed her more. and the way they introduced her story and all that, I think was great. But when you look at characters like Rogue, when you look at Storm, they held their equal grounds. When you look at Jean Grey, because and that was the kind of void that Marvel had to fill in with the
Yeah.
MCU. And I think if people understood that history, where it's like, okay, we have to recreate these characters to try to bring this equality where they're all at the same level.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where a lot of people who are also classic fans, where they were
Mhm.
like, well, that's not how the story was. I'm like, they're inspired by these stories, but we have to understand they're inspired.
Yeah.
And now that Marvel has all their eggs in one basket, a lot of the strong-led female characters that we saw in X-Men, and unfortunately, some of them still stuck with Sony. We're most likely going to get, because I can't wait till we actually get their version of Rogue, because I don't feel like we got a version of Rogue on this big screen
Yeah.
that really transitioned from the comics well.
No, and I can agree with that. But what I want to, I just want to, I hate this topic
Yeah.
because
I know
it makes people
it's a
feel like
it's a
you know, it's a topic that, like, it sounds like you're either saying, if you don't like these things, you hate women, and it's not that, like,
no, and this is what I'm saying. We're
yeah,
having a back and forth.
yeah,
We're having a
exactly.
conversation. Well, I'm saying what I don't like
Hmm.
is that when you have people, when you try to have that back and forth with, they're not sitting there to try to understand both sides or the middle, because there is a middle to this.
Yeah.
There is a middle. There's no 100% this. No, there is a middle, and it's understanding how did we get here and why did this happen. That's why I said, if you look at it, they didn't have a lot of their female-led characters because they were all licensed in the X-Men, and the X-Men was just a popular
Yeah,
property.
but I mean, right now we're specifically talking about Marvel, but this is a trend going on TV shows and other movies, and this is the thing. Okay, okay. Obviously, growing up, you probably watched a lot of the same shows I did. I watched a lot of whatever it was. I love the Bionic Woman female led show. I could go into like Buffy and Xena, love those shows. Everybody today is saying they want to do stuff that has never been done before, and they're going to push strong female characters in. They're going to do lesbian relationships or whatever it is, just to say, hey, look, we're putting this in your face. But both Xena and Buffy did that. They had strong female leads. They created, when they made Willow gay and a witch, they created a powerful character that showed a relation. There was never anything where people were like, "Oh my God, she's a lesbian. This is, I'm not going to watch the show anymore." You know,
My
there
my
was,
wife my wife would appreciate you with the whole Buffy knowledge. I'm like,
yeah,
I got a
it's
lot of Buffy.
I listen. I still watch it in reruns on occasion. Sometimes I throw it on Hulu. It's like I said. I watch a lot when I'm working. I throw on things I've watched before because I don't want to get caught up in a new story. But then when you see it go to an extreme, where, like I was saying about She-Hulk, where I felt that she was talking down to somebody who is the definition of anger, you know, or you're looking at a character that never had an issue until like her suit was turned on, or they changed stuff just because I'm woman. I don't think those are good motivations. I
But
don't think that's good storytelling. And and now, people are saying they're trying to do things just to shock people. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen, I don't remember her name right now, but the director of the new Ray movie coming out, where she made her comment that says, I just want to make men uncomfortable when basically when she make a movie. Why are you going to do that? You're going to alienate an entire group of people who the original movies were basically made for, and are bringing their kids into it now, and grandkids and all this stuff. And you're saying, I'm going to take half the ticket sales and say, F you to you guys. It's not for you. I'm not saying you can't make a movie that has a strong female role model. You can't make a TV show. Like, that was also my issue with She-Hulk, was finally a show came out where we could have had a strong female lead for young girls to look up to, right? And she's cursing, she's talking, making sex jokes, she's doing all this stuff. Like, I thought, I was like, I'm done. This isn't a show that could be a family show to sit down to.
I think that that's what show with She-Hulk. I don't think that that was their onset goal to market their families. I think that was more for Miss Marvel with what's her face Imani, who by
Mhm.
the way in the movie The Marvels, because I get what people are saying with like the Carol Danvers character, like she's a stick in the mud. If it wasn't for Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel being there, because Miss Marvel stole the show in the movie. She is
Mhm.
phenomenal, and I think that that was the Miss Marvel was created for younger audience, well, for young audience. You can see it in the influence. She Hulk was Marvel's experiment, and Kevin Feige made it no secret that he wanted to try his hand at a comedy show. I don't think I'm not a big fan of shows that do like 30 minutes unless it's like, like a sitcom or something like that.
Mhm.
And I think that that's the route they were going for. Now, in terms of Bruce, I get with like a lot of people saying like what they're doing bad. Like, first of all, Marvel didn't have the full license, and second,
Yeah.
again, when I appreciated her conversations with Bruce, like yeah, he is the person who's the definition of anger, but for him to sit there and actually listen to his cousin, it told me more about their relationship because he's not making it about him. He's like, okay, I'm just going to listen to you. I
No, no,
know I got my
I'm
anger
not.
issues, but it's like for
I'm
me,
not saying that, but I thought
yeah,
it
yeah,
was an insulting way of
yeah.
attacking the character of like it was disrespectful to the character of the Hulk. That was my issue with it. I listen, I'll never be a woman. I never know what catcalling's like. I'll never know what the anger that they feel are like. Okay? And I get that and I understand it, and if you want to explain it to me in a story that I can relate to in some way, absolutely. But don't go like even the Captain America joke about his sex life. Captain America that they spent all that time building would never tell anyone about his sex life. That version of Captain America would never have done it. He wouldn't
Now, if
have
he's
told
hanging,
anybody.
now if he's hanging out with Tony Stark and Tony gets him drunk enough, uh,
He can't get drunk.
that's a different story.
But he can't get drunk. If he did that
I,
happen in the first movie.
I felt that like for me, I felt again that loan more to like his soldier side, his like okay, I'm sure of my like. But as far as it goes with Steve Rogers is always like even with that little small thing, he's gonna be the epitome of someone who's always the hero
Yeah.
because of how he is and all that. That was like what I felt when they dropped the ball with Superman because he needed to be that. And that's why I'm hoping this is what James Gunn is aiming for is that we're getting that version of Superman that is that hero that because like I appreciated Superman more because of Unbreakable
Mhm.
when they explained the character of Superman. Clark Kent isn't the secret identity. I mean, it's like it's Superman. He uses Clark to hide Superman, but it's like he's a superpowered alien playing to being human. He could destroy you with it. And I appreciate it. Made me like the character more because he's this really strong character who is trying to really bring value and live up to the values and what the values that he was taught by
Yeah.
his parents.
Mhm.
Um, that also made me appreciate the show too. The animation, I thought the animation on HBO did a great job on doing a retelling of a younger version of their different version of Superman, and it still embodied that with the
Which
character.
which
The new animated one on Netflix, I mean on HBO. It was
Oh, okay,
him.
okay, yeah, yeah, the one that's on Adult Swim. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and
That's a great show.
yeah, and I appreciated the storytelling with that. I liked how they did Lois Lane in there. I liked how, again, they gave a nod to all the other various universes of Superman within when they did the Council of Lois's, and you saw the different versions
Yeah.
from other stuff. I thought that that show was really well done in characterizing Superman. Um, I feel like we've gotten to a point where a lot of these superhero characters, there are images that we do love. There are some that are just holy, but there are some that, like I told you, like at the beginning, I want to see a type of evolution and a type of growth. Um, and again, with She-Hulk, I could go back and forth with what I liked and what I didn't like. I go there was a lot of missed opportunities. Unfortunately, it was used for a way for Hulk, but now that Marvel has the full license for Hulk, I am excited to see what they will do with that
Mhm.
because before they can only really regulate him to like the side character that we've seen him.
Mhm.
Because like I was upset with the way, like I told you that last episode. Oh yeah, we're just gonna shoehorn. Hey, yeah, this is my son. Look, and I didn't like that.
I
And
couldn't
again,
I couldn't comment. I didn't see it.
yeah,
I saw the
it's
first episode and said goodbye.
yeah, they introduced Scar in the very last episode. It was
Okay.
like it was like one of those end credit scenes, like, hey,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm back. Here's my son. I was just like, and it looked like a bad Channing Tatum CGI.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was upset about that. And I was like, this was just a complete missed opportunity to introduce Scar
Yeah.
and Hulk's relationship. But since now they have the full license, I am interested to see what they will do with that now.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they've listened to people a lot with looking at, because they didn't expect Ant-Man not to do so well. And I can get into that a little bit with that. I'm not going to, that's because like you can see, it's a rabbit hole, but I'm excited to see what they're doing, why they've delayed stuff, and how they're revamping stuff. Because like even with Daredevil, they scratched everything and said we're going to rework it.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, and Daredevil's one of my favorite Marvel characters. I mean, he's not my all-time favorite, but he's one of my favorite. He was the first. He was one of the first Marvel books I read. I picked up the first Marvel book I ever bought was a Spider-Man and a Daredevil book. Those were the two Marvel books, and I've been in love with like the characters since. But and this is the thing, like the Netflix version of Daredevil should not be on Disney Plus in the sense of violence. I feel they toned down some of the violence, but that was also my issue with She-Hulk. She-Hulk should not be, with the way I saw the first episode. I said this is not a Disney. This should
And that
not be on Disney Plus. But if they're going to bring some violence in, I don't know now. Like, how is
well, that's
Daredevil
so
Morgan going to be?
I knew it was going. So again, remember I told you I like forecasting.
Mhm.
I already knew this was going to happen because Disney also owns the Fox library.
Yeah, of course.
Disney for a little while was putting stuff on also Hulu because they were the major shareholder for
Yeah,
Hulu, but now they're the now they're the sole holder for it.
yeah.
Um, Eventually, because Disney in other countries has Disney Star, that's where they put all the mature content in the Disney app. So it's
Mhm.
still Disney Plus, but within it, it's the Star section. In the US, they were like, okay, we have Hulu and then we have this. So eventually what they started doing was that, yeah, we're going to release mature content. So at the parent setting, and it's understandable. A lot of people go, well, Disney hosts. I'm like, no, Disney's business. Disney has ABC content. Disney has this. So it's like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and then in an ever structure of competing apps right now, they're now consolidating in each other. They have to make themselves relevant for a wider audience. That's like, yeah, yeah, we can't just get your kids, just go to the parental settings, set it for the family stuff. But if you want the mature stuff, it's there.
Here's my issue. It's the name Disney. Disney created its name on wholesome family entertainment. Now, I have no problem with violence. One of my all-time favorite movies is First Blood, and I will watch that movie over and over again.
Yeah.
And I will watch any of the Rambo films. Give me those 80s blow 'em up movie. I am a fan, and I am happy. All right. But when you have the name Disney, there is a certain level you should be living up to. If Disney had a separate service, and I'm not saying Hulu, but another service that was for their more mature content, I wouldn't have a problem with a lot of the stuff. And I'll tell you right now, the main reason I keep Disney Plus is The Simpsons. That's it.
Well,
I don't keep my Disney Plus for the Disney stuff anymore. I watch The Simpsons at least twice a week
you know who
on
you can
there.
blame. So you know who you can blame for that with all the content on Disney Plus?
Who?
Bob Chapek.
Oh, you can. Well, actually, I'm not gonna blame him yet. You blame what's his name right now, the one in charge now, because he left Chapek involved. He set everything up for Chapek to fail, and then he came in and failed again. So
Yeah, it's so I mean, at the end of the, because I used to work in the cable industry. For those who don't know, what's happening right now is what you're seeing is a streaming war. And like even right now, there are rumors that Warner Brothers and Paramount are going to merge, and eventually their apps are going to merge together. So, and the fact that Disney now has 100% control of Hulu, I will not be surprised that eventually, if they decide to merge both Hulu and Disney Plus together and rename the app.
Mhm.
The only issue I could see running down with that is because they're going to be like, well, we still want to keep Hulu separate, getting separate subscriptions. Because the crazy thing is that Echo is the first show that is airing both on Hulu and Disney Plus now, and you can also access Hulu content through Disney Plus
No,
now.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff, but
Yeah, if you have a Hulu and Disney Plus subscription together, you can kind of cross the two.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's gonna get to the point eventually where it's probably gonna be one universal app. They may rename it down the line and be like, okay, this is the Disney content here. This is this because they
Well,
have the library of stuff.
well, when Disney is sold and bought by Apple or something like that, you know,
Oh
it'll
my
it'll
god, you're
all.
gonna have to wait for the update.
Listen, you know me. I'm a big Disney guy.
Yeah, no, I know.
My whole apartment outside of this room was really Disney
No,
decorated.
and
It's not too much anymore. But
I
it's
see.
I don't think like you said, it's a business. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, and when you were talking specifically about when the Marvel stuff came out and how they were slowly putting female characters in, I don't think that's why they were doing it. I think it was a business. I think they looked and said, who watches these type of films? It's, we're targeting young boys. Why? Because we can sell action figures to them. That, when you look at shows like what was it, the Young Justice show that went off the air because supposedly toys weren't selling. So they were go, why are we going to have this commercial on TV? And eventually it came back on streaming, but it was the failure of selling merch.
But
Okay. And
there's
they
also
don't think women buy merch. But I always tell people, if you want to make money as a comic artist, your fans need to be 12 to 14-year-old girls. That's it.
yeah.
They'll buy everything. I'm sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
no. I was because I remember too a lot of the stuff that was happening at Marvel at the time. Because you saw the reports when it's like Bob, like I forget Ike Palmieri or whoever was ahead of the comics at the time, because he was also in charge of the MCU at the time as well. Before
Okay.
Iger said, "Feige, you're in charge of the MCU
Yeah,
stuff."
yeah.
Um, remember at one point they started killing off and didn't start making any new mutant characters,
Mm.
and they're coming out now that the original creators of the new Miss Marvel, how they were like originally she was going to be a mutant, but they were told like she couldn't be a mutant, so they made her inhuman, and that was at the time they were trying to push the Inhumans to replace the X-Men because Fox had the movie rights to the X-Men.
Mm.
So again, it stems all the way down with the comics at the time of who was in charge of what they were trying to push. And I believe that that was the memorandum that just continued. And again, it was a lot of the licensing. Now all that stuff is right back under. And it's like, let's see what you guys are going to do with it now. Where at the time, it was like they were definitely working to reinvent the wheel, reinvent a lot of characters to be where they wanted them to be, to try to appeal to a wider audience. And again, in that first half, there was a lot of great storytelling. And like I said, I feel like after Endgame was done, a lot of people were like, let me just put Marvel on my resume. And you have a lot of people who unfortunately came in and did not do a good job with stuff. But again, I could go down deep down that rabbit hole. I know we've already went on that tangent.
Yeah, yeah. And you and I have talked about this privately.
And
I
we
know
will
it's
continue to talk about it.
yeah, it's listen, I hate to say it. I don't like the way the film industry is right now. I don't like the entertainment industry with what
Well,
I'm getting as a
it's
fan. There's not many things coming out. Like season 2 of Reacher's really good right now. I will say on Disney Plus, the new version of Percy Jackson is a fun show. It
mhm.
is. They're doing a really
And I
good job with
always
that.
said Percy Jackson should have been a show.
Yeah,
Not a movie. The movie
yeah,
is horrible.
I agree.
If you want a good show to watch on Netflix, Brother's Son was good.
I
The
don't think I
brother,
saw that yet.
the Brother's Son
Brother's Son.
has Michelle Yeoh. That was good. Me and my wife binge watched it and I enjoyed it. I've been watching more international stuff,
Hmm.
and so every time I see something international, I'll jump on that because again, it's like you said, the film industry in our country is in a way a lot of times superficial and doesn't move forward because when they see something that works, 50 studios try to copy it now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say I watched on Netflix, and I know it's old. I know I just had to look it up to see when it ended in 2020. But I just watched Louder Milk and thought it was a fantastic show. I don't know if you ever saw that, but that made me laugh really hard. You know.
I saw the first episode. What's pretty good, it's on Apple TV. You have C with Jason Momoa, has 3 seasons.
Hmm.
That would that was the Khal Drago we all wanted in Game of Thrones.
Okay.
It was really good. It's picture this. It's a world where everyone is blind, and if you have sight, you're considered a witch.
Yeah, I've heard. I've never watched, but I saw clips. I
So-
know.
And then Harrison Ford is on a show called Shrinking or Shrink
Yeah,
on
that.
Apple TV. That's good too.
Yeah, I just got rid of my Apple TV, but I saw the first two episodes of Shrinking, I think it's called,
Yeah,
and I thought it was pretty good. But I just wasn't paying because I wasn't using it
I
as
think
as much.
to me, I think that that's definitely a great role for Harrison. Where
Mhm.
I did not like him in the last Indiana Jones movie.
I haven't
I
seen
felt
that
bad.
either. But see, here's the thing: just to see, this is how much I don't care anymore. I haven't seen the new Indiana Jones. It's streaming now. I haven't seen the new. I haven't seen Wakanda Forever yet. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen Loki season 2. I haven't seen Mandalorian season 3. I haven't seen any of the new Star Wars stuff. No Andor. None of the animation stuff. I haven't seen. I could sit here and list everything that's come out in like the last 2 years, and I really haven't watched it because I don't care anymore. I
Please,
don't.
please,
I
please tell me with that big Super Mario in the back though that you saw the Super Mario movie.
Yes, and I fell asleep for 20 minutes, and I got to watch it again.
Come on, you gotta see Peaches.
Let me listen. No, no, no. I
Peaches.
watched. What happened was whatever streaming service it's on. I'm like, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch it. It's out today. I'm gonna watch it. I had such a long day at work. I came home, and my wife and we ordered food, and we sat down. We're gonna watch the soup, and for 20 minutes I was out, and then I woke up, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down to go back and watch the entire movie. But I thought it was a fun movie.
It is.
I thought it
It is a
was.
very fun movie and love letter to Nintendo.
I am such a big Mario fan. Um, that like when I heard they were making it, I was like, super excited, and I don't know if they have one, but I want to look and see if they have like the art of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now they make those books, the art of
Yeah.
Frozen or whatever. I have a bunch of art of books, but I don't have the art of the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I got it. And now that I have to look and see if it's there and add it
Listen,
maybe to my Amazon wish list.
all I gotta say is that every person they picked to play their characters,
Mhm.
I felt like they embodied their characters. Like even Chris Pratt, because a lot of
Yeah,
people questioned that casting choice. He did such a great job as the voice of Mario in it, and even they played homage to the classic voice too,
yep,
which I was like, I loved Charlie Day as Luigi. Jack Black voicing Bowser was phenomenal. It's probably
yeah,
one of the funniest things I've seen. I love the fact that they created a whole song for Peaches. Seth Rogen, for some reason, the voice of Donkey Kong is just Seth Rogen being Seth Rogen, but it fit Donkey Kong.
yeah,
And I'm just excited to see what they would do with because there's rumors that they want to do more and possibly even incorporate a Super Smash crossover, which I think would be fun.
yeah,
But it's like it definitely was a lovely love letter to Nintendo, especially the world of Super Mario with all the
yeah.
homages and all the Easter eggs that they put in there.
I listen. Like I said, I thought what I saw was fantastic. I will watch it from start to finish one day. But I would love to see a Zelda movie now. As you can see, my Link poster behind me. I would love to see, and I think there's talks now because of how good Mario did. But I think number one, nostalgia is always in for people like us, but the kids are still into it these days. These are good movies that you could make. They need to pull from the uh proper sources. I love superheroes. I can watch superheroes every day if you give me a good superhero movie or TV show. I'll literally watch it every single day. I've been watching freaking Arrow a couple of episodes a day, or when I get my free time to work. But
I'm mad
mhm. That they went
because
8 seasons. I was too. I think they should have stopped at 5. But okay.
no, I'm mad that no, I'm mad that that Legends of Tomorrow didn't get a good closeout because they had casted Donald Faison in the role of Booster Gold in the final
Okay. Well,
season.
don't spoil. I still have to watch the last. I'm not done with the last season.
Yeah. But
It's
no, it was no secret. They had announced it that he was
yeah.
casted as Booster
Oh
Gold.
no, I know. I'm just saying. Don't say anything. I still wanna.
But but no, I appreciate this. Like again, like when we were talking about it earlier, I do appreciate the subtle introductions of the wider big three in the Arrowverse without even having to use them. I mean, the only one they did was Superman, and from there they spun off and did the show for Superman with Tyler Halston, which I thought was pretty good.
Last
But
season
yeah,
coming out this year.
yeah, it's official though. The Arrowverse has officially closed out. It's the
Yeah.
end of our era.
But you know what? I gotta say, and I know we've done 2 hours, so we're gonna end this soon. I gotta get up real early.
We both got bed. We're turning into pumpkins.
But here's the thing. I didn't hate the Arrowverse. I really enjoyed Arrow itself. And I was always a Green Arrow fan. I mean, I was not diehard like I knew everything about him, but I was always like a Robin Hood fan growing up, and I liked his classic costume and all, where he looked more like Robin Hood. He was a character I always drew. And when I got his comics, I read more of the older stuff. And I just liked the character. So I was happy when I heard Green Arrow was coming out. But when you start seeing all the Batman villains coming in, you start realizing like, hey, they just really wanted Batman and they didn't bring him in. And so it's like I feel like I'm watching Green Arrow the Batman, you know?
And
Uh,
it's again that was a studio exec decision because if you look at the show,
mm,
they limited him on a lot of stuff. Like for a while after, they're like, oh well, we're gonna bring Deathstroke to the movies. They couldn't use Deathstroke anymore.
yeah.
When they were gonna do the Suicide Squad movie for David Ayer,
Mm.
if you remember, Harley Quinn's silhouette is in the Arrowverse. She
Oh
was
yeah, they
supposed to
use
be
they
yeah,
use what's her name? Tara Strong.
she was supposed to be an Arrow, but then they stopped them from using her. They stopped them from really building out their Suicide Squad.
Mm.
They killed off their version of Amanda Waller. And it was a lot of the stuff like, there were a lot of stuff that they were handcuffed with because they're like, well, no, we're going to use this for the movies. We can't have it. And I remember too,
But
Stephen Amell was very vocal about, we're doing a lot of great stuff on the TV shows. It's like you have a great actor who's playing the Flash, and
mm,
then you cast Ezra Miller,
yeah,
who is a whole garbage person we'll talk about another time.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Grant Gustin embodied that role. My wife, because of the Flash TV show,
Mm.
she got more respect and love for the Flash, which was a character she didn't know about, and she loved that show and the cast and the chemistry they had together.
I
But
I think I think it was a good show in the beginning. I will say that. I stopped after like season 6 on the Flash.
I think it got hurt with COVID, and I think because after they did Crisis, I don't think they knew what to do with the show after.
Well, I know Grant wanted to, being the star of a show is a lot of work, tiring. They did what, 9 seasons? After like I think season 7, I think he was technically, I don't know what season, I'm just making this up, but
Yeah.
there's just so much. And I remember talking to someone who was part of the show at a convention, and they mentioned that Grant was just he needs a break. Like I
Yeah.
think that was really what it was, Grant. And I I know Stephen Amell will come back as Arrow if he could.
Steven would come back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, yeah.
Steven Stephen Amell, protect that man. He is a treasure. That man is a wrestler.
Mhm.
He is a fan of wrestling. He is a fan of comics. He loves his fans. Um and I mean he definitely embraced being Arrow and that universe because he was very, very, very and again
Mhm.
wasn't afraid to speak up against the studio. He thought that they were really crapping on them with what they were trying to do at the CW, and
Mhm.
I think that made him want to make what they were doing a lot better than what the studios were doing.
I would agree with that. I mean, listen, I don't know everything. Only what I've seen and read about
Yeah,
and stuff. But I think he did a good job. He was a good version of the character. I think bringing in Grant Gustin, he was a good Flash, but he was good. He was, and this is one of my issues with it. When I feel that Barry stopped being excited, that's when the show went down for me. Like there was a feel like he always seemed to be super happy, and eventually it just kind of was like, okay, here comes Happy Barry now, and then they started making him super sad in some things,
he's
and
bipolar.
yeah, it was just like
He's
I
bipolar.
can't do it.
He's a
Legends
bipolar hero.
Supergirl was good up until like the last couple of seasons. Um, but I really enjoyed the way they brought Superman in there. I thought he had a very nice Silver Age feel to it. I thought that the first episode where Supergirl and Superman met, I was like, that is what I want in a show, in a superhero show. It was so much fun and everything. It was like the episode almost where like Barry and Supergirl met, where like there was just the excitement, the fun there. And you could see that they enjoyed acting together. But Legends, which when you look at it overall, is a terrible show.
Oh
It
yeah,
was, but it was just
but it
so much
works.
fun because they made fun of themselves in the show. Even
It
like, did we miss another crossover, or another like they would say stuff like
yeah,
it was.
that sh- Legends worked so perfectly that it was what in a way like I was a fan of Suicide Squad too. I thought it was okay, but Legends is what Suicide Squad needed to be.
Mhm.
And Legends, like again, it was funny because when I saw when they introduced Starro in Suicide Squad, instantly I flipped right to Legends with Bebo.
Mhm.
And I was like, because again, Legends did not take itself seriously.
Yeah.
It fit that formula.
But I think that's what makes some of those shows work well is that when you see the actors having fun, you have fun watching it, even if it's a bad show. You know,
It's, to this day, I would die on that hill. My favorite fight scene, that would be one of my all-time favorite fight scenes, is when Damon Dark is beating up a bunch of people and you hear Return of the Mac playing in the background because it was his ringtone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, there's so many good things that came out of that. It was a good era of television, and you're not
Yeah.
going to see that again, at least not for a very long time.
And it's
Uh,
sad because a lot of people won't take their time to watch the era first
yeah.
because of certain things. But it's like, no, there was a lot of great moments in it. There was a lot of great character moments, a lot of great TV moments, a lot of fun superhero moments. Which I'm like, it's an end of our era with the last season of Superman.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's just sad because that show was really good. It was a really
Yeah.
good show, and I hope they ended on a high note that they can at least bring the character back in some way, whether it's all the actors, some because this and this is my problem, and we're going to end in a moment, but this is really my problem with DC, with Marvel. They all want to embrace a multiverse. Stop. The only one that should embrace a multiverse is DC because of the Crisis on Infinite Earth story. Outside of that storyline, I don't want to see other universes. I don't. Although, hold on, I will say an Earth 2 storyline would be great for me because I love the Earth 2 characters. But stop with the multiverse. You're just saying I could do anything I want, and if it doesn't work, well, it's not part of this universe.
Well, I think in Marvel's case, and you could, I think what they're doing is that they're basing it off of the second Secret Wars storyline, where what they did, they took all their popular imprints that weren't in one universe
Mm.
and used Secret Wars to combine it in, kind of like what DC did with Crisis. And I feel that's what we're getting with the Marvel MCU right now, because they made it no secret that the next Avengers movie, the one, well, I don't know if they're saying the rumors that they're re-changing it from Kang Dynasty, but like the one after that is going to be Secret Wars. And what I think is that they're using this in a way to try to shoehorn more of the properties that they didn't have licenses with, so they could work on the next big thing. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know. Again, I
But
don't
it's
care.
funny. But
So
it's funny because you mentioned the stuff we talked about studios, because a lot of
yeah,
people started like, well, Marvel's doing the multiverse now. Let's all do a multiverse. But I was like, well, wait, the multiverse was also done by the Arrowverse when they did
yeah.
Crisis,
Yeah.
but
Well,
no
they were
one
trying
saw
to
it.
do. Yeah, they were trying to do the Crisis on Infinite Earth story there,
Yeah,
which
but no
was
one
which
saw it.
was okay, but it wasn't the best version. But
No,
that's it.
and
I'm waiting for the new cartoon. The part one is I just don't want to pay for it, so I'm waiting for it to come on Max so I can watch it for free. But I've watched enough clips between YouTube and TikTok that I think I've seen the entire film now. But it's there are some good clips. Did you see the clip where like Earth 2 Dick Grayson goes and talks to Batman and he's like, "Hey, Batman or Bruce, it's me, Dick." He's like, "Who? Dick Grayson?" Oh, the Flying Graysons. Tony, he goes, he's like, "Yeah, on my Earth, you took me in and trained me, and I became your partner." He goes, "That seems a little irresponsible, or something like that." And I'm just like, there's some funny little bits that have been going around, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but Crisis on Infinite Earths was the first full comic series that I ever read. My
oh, nice.
nephew, not my nephew, I'm sorry, my cousin had it, and when I'd go to his house, I would read the books. It was the first time I read like a full, like, series, if you will. And that's what brought me into comics, because before that, I knew Superman and Batman from the Super Friend cartoons, and I knew Spider-Man from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and those shows. So like when I went to see my cousin and he had these comic books, I was like, oh my God, all these guys. And then I'm like, wait, this is not what I see in the cartoon. It was completely different. So, but that was my first thing. And so Crisis holds a very special place in
Yeah.
my heart.
I think that's where I feel with What If, because What If was one of the first comics I picked up, and I think that's why I really do love the What If show,
Mm,
because I love those conversations of, if this person who walked by the glass, what if they had picked it up?
mm,
If this person had just held the door for a little longer, what would have happened? And I kind of like where they went with playing with the current MCU lore, and that they're just having fun with it, and it's actually birthed some really fun characters. Like, I fell in love with the Captain Carter character. I think
mm,
Captain Carter definitely holds an equal footing with Steve Rogers, that equality what we want to see, because she
mm.
embodies it, Peggy. And like, what if she got the super soldier serum? I thought that it was just awesome. I loved that it got to introduce us to Marvel Zombies, which is now getting a spin-off animation.
Oh my God! I'm sorry, I'm not knocking it. It's just like I here. My thing is, I loved the What If comics when I was a kid. I loved the Who's Who books from DC and the Marvel universe. All those behind the scene, whatever there, and the Marvel Age books. I loved like all that stuff more than I loved the actual comic books that were going on. But the thing is, when the What If TV series came out, and that they played with the MCU, I'm like, oh, you just limited yourself, because there was so many other things. And I understand they didn't have license to certain characters,
Yeah.
but those what if books were so great. And I'm not saying copy them or whatever, but you could have played with so many different things that you had access to and introduce an audience to stuff that they would have never known about, and maybe brought in characters like, okay, so they made up Captain Carter for this, and they bring in Marvel Zombies, which was a high selling comic book. But, you know, I can't think off the top of my head, but they could have started pulling characters that they had the rights to that weren't in the universe yet, and made us fall in love with those characters that they could have brought them into live action.
And I think they did because like, and they said to the writers for that because obviously they're beholden to what they can do. But in season
Exactly.
2, I think they extended more because I'm not sure if you saw season 2 or
No, I
care for
saw
me
a
to spoil
couple
it.
of clips like on YouTube and TikTok and things like that,
So
but
what I thought was cool, we got Bill Foster's Giant Man featured in there.
okay.
We got King T'Challa's father.
Hmm.
So we got him as the Black
Yeah,
Panther
I
in
saw
it.
a clip of that one.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. We had Hank Pym's Ant-Man.
Oh, I didn't see that, but that'd be nice.
Yeah, so we got to see like if the event like it they had formed their versions of the Avengers earlier. And it was in the like what if Star-Lord was actually delivered to Ego.
Hmm.
Like and it was interesting that how they did that. We got in this season a brand new character that doesn't exist in the comics, which is called Hardy, which I thought was really done well, and they actually worked with a Native American nation to bring this character. So she's a very original character.
Oh yeah, I did see clips of this, like the glowing of the, I don't know if it was skin or jewels or something. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
So we got a very original character in her, which doesn't exist in the comics, and I thought it was handled pretty well. And what was cool about that episode, you could watch it in English, but they also filmed the version of that episode in the native language too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was dope. What else did we get? We had a fun episode of Nebula. Like, what if she was part of the Nova Corps?
Okay.
And it was the first episode that Vin Diesel was not the voice of Groot.
Oh, I
So
mean, I guess you don't really need him officially as
no,
Groot, but
but they are already announced for season 3, and season 3 they're gonna play with Red Guardian,
okay.
and they haven't announced all the playlists. I think they're just waiting to get confirmation that they can play with the X-Men characters. But
Hmm.
I think what's happening, but well, what they said is that they have to wait until the movie version is released first, and then they're going to be giving green lights to play with those characters to start to bring them into the what if.
Yeah.
But they had fun with a lot of stuff. Like it was interesting the whole episode with Hela. Like, what if she had discovered the 10 rings?
Hmm.
So Hela was like the main character for that one. Um, and again, it revisited the story of Stephen Strange, the one that went down a dark route in
Hmm.
this one. And oh, and they also had in the storyline. You remember the storyline Marvel 1601?
Hmm.
They had an episode that actually fell into that as well, and I thought it was just fun swashbuckling fun for that episode.
I could get into
And
something like that. But
and John Favreau said the only way he would revoice Happy Hogan is if they had him play the Freak.
that'd be cool.
Yeah. So I thought what if was just you don't have to really care for the MCU canon or can I just thought it's just fun ways of playing with the characters, doing stuff, and just and it was just funny seeing John Favreau. I mean the episode he was in was definitely homage to Die Hard. So
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll get to it. It's one of, like I just mentioned. I mentioned a lot of stuff that was popular like in the last 2 years that I haven't watched 1 ounce of, because I haven't had the urge. I haven't, like I said, I haven't cared. I want to, but the thing is, I want to care. I want to like these characters, but I've seen so much bad storytelling come out of these studios, and I hate to say it because they're characters that I love. But again, I'm not the audience anymore. So I don't, when I hear a kid, like I go out, I work with kids, I do shows, whatever, and a kid talks to me about it, I'll tell them, I'm sorry I didn't watch it, but I think it's great that you're telling me great stories or whatever. I'm not going to knock the kid for liking this stuff. It's what they're being shown, and it's what they like. And if it's going to introduce them to superheroes or whatever, then that's awesome, but at the same time, I'll find other things to watch. Like we had a conversation a couple of years ago where I just couldn't, and everyone was telling me, and I think you said it too, I had superhero fatigue. I didn't have superhero fatigue. I've always said it. I've had bad storytelling fatigue. and but I stopped watching superheroes because I just wasn't happy with what I was getting. And that's when I discovered, and I was a good season. It was already like the season was already over, but I got into Ted Lasso, and I thought that was the first show that brought me joy in like a year, or something.
Oh yeah,
And
it's come down to like again like what's interests you, good
yeah,
writing, because like I said, like when I told you about Secret Invasion, I had mixed feelings about Secret Invasion.
yeah,
I wanted the show to be great. It was a mid-tier show that I felt fell flat. I think Eternal should have been a TV show because I felt like the movie was just too condensed. I felt like Moon Knight, I have a love relationship, hate relationship with that. I really felt that that could have been condensed into a movie. There are a lot of things that, again, when I looked at Marvel, and I watch this stuff, and I'm like, I know that they're doing a great job in what they're doing, but there are things that, yeah, I can criticize them on what they do only because there's certain things I think if it would have worked better this way.
yeah.
Like Miss Marvel was a fun show for me. I enjoyed it because she's a fan of the character.
Mm.
She embodies the character. I think she's even gotten a writing gig to write for the character in the
Oh, really?
comics
I didn't
too.
know that.
Yeah, but she is a big fan of the character. And I think you can see it when she portrays it. And that's why I said in the Marvels movie, she stole the show.
Mm.
She is the best thing to happen in the MCU in a
Mm.
long time after Endgame. Um and there are just a lot of things. Like I'm upset with DC because I'm really hoping James Gunn can revamp it. I liked Blue Beetle, which I think was fun.
I thought that was. I'll tell you, the only thing I didn't like about Blue Beetle was how they handled OMAC, because I enjoyed again, a disrespect to Kirby. Stop disrespecting Kirby. All right. But I was rewatching Arrow today, like earlier today, and the episode I watched was when Ray Palmer finally at the end made the suit. But in the beginning, I think it was in that episode or the episode before, when he was showing it to Felicity, he was like, "This is called the OMAC, but but I prefer the Atom, like for the acronym." And I'm like, I forgot about that. I hate how they're handling. No, nobody does OMAC well, and I'm
No.
like, again, disrespect to Kirby, and it's so sad to see. But here's what I'll say, and then I'll let you have the last word since you're the guest. I
Aw.
think I think um, superhero movies or anything that comes from a long format of a book, comic book, something like that, should be done into a 12-hour film released serialized every month, every 2 hours every month. Just like how back in the 40s and 50s, the films, you would go in, you'd get a 12-minute reel, and they made up a film after a certain amount of weeks, and you'd see Captain America, Captain Marvel, Shazam, Captain Marvel. You would see the Phantom, Superman, Batman, Dick Tracy, any of those guys. You get these 15, 20 minute, whatever it was, and then by the end, you could have an actual film together, and you have a big story, right? If superheroes did that these days, or even something like Conan that comes out of like pulp books or the and you do a long format that it would be a 12-hour story and release it monthly, my God, how cool would that be? That to bring the seats in every month,
I think that works perfect since we are in a streaming world
Mhm.
now. And I think that what that will lend to if you do the big crossover events and you save them for like big movie events.
Mhm.
Like if you're like, okay, we have the 12 hours of Batman that we have,
Yeah.
but now we want to cross over Batman, Superman in a big event. You save that for like the movies.
Mhm.
You use the TV shows to tell the long format, get the origin stories and all that. Because the rumors right now, which I think is going to work best, is after Daredevil, Spider-Man 4 is going to be another version of Secret War, not Secret War, Civil War, but with the street level heroes this time.
Okay.
There are talks that because the Netflix shows they said are official MCU canon,
Yeah.
and with Daredevil, Echo, which Echo they said did pretty well. I enjoyed Echo. I thought it was
Oh, I heard
pretty
lots of
handling.
negative about. I haven't heard anybody say it was good.
I thought it was good, and there are a lot of people. I've been here. I've heard both sides. There's some
Mhm.
people who crapping on it, but there's a lot of people that did like it. And I thought they did handle it well. And she again, phenomenal person. As far as it goes, they've already set that storyline in motion with Echo.
Yeah, no, no, no. And listen, I'm not saying it's a bad show. I haven't watched it. I can't give an
Yeah.
opinion. But everything that I've heard have been very negative about it. And I maybe it's the news I get. But very few people tell me it's good. And a lot of my news comes from people on Facebook who said, I just watched Echo, you don't need to. It's you know what I mean? It's stuff like that.
I've stopped. I know some of those people. I'm just like, I'm like, I can't listen to it, bro. Sit down. Stop it.
Yeah.
Go to old home. No.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
But anyway, man, listen,
but
it's
no,
been
this has been fun.
yeah, I've had a great time. We've done 2.5 hours. I
We didn't
really
get any
didn't think we
try.
were
We were
going that
supposed
long.
to draw.
We were going to do a draw stream. If I was awake enough, I would totally say I'll draw real quick for you guys. But I'm
That's
tired
awesome.
today. I'm very
Yeah.
tired. Um, but yeah, listen, it was very fun having you on. I wish we talked more about your artwork. But I had a great time.
It's the tangents we go in. You see,
Yeah.
it's this is the stuff that people get to see next Tuesday when we come back live for nerds. We just run off a
Oh,
tangent.
that's what I wanted to bring up. Nerds is coming back. So just quickly give a pitch for Nerds of the Round.
Nerds Around is it's your weekly live podcast that we go live, talk about various geek culture stuff. We're actually gonna be trying some new stuff this season to bring more different topics. Sometimes we'll do show reviews and everything. We go live every Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yes, we are debuting for our 2024 season. So we've
Awesome.
been going strong.
Awesome. That how long you been Nerds of the Round for?
Oh my god. I think the show's been going on since 2018.
Wow. Well, good for you guys.
Show has evolved a lot. It used to be pre-recorded, then eventually we went live.
Hmm.
Biggest mistake of our lives. Uh, um, but yeah, I think this year there are a lot of new stuff we want to try to do to help the show evolve.
Okay.
New formats, like if right now we're still playing around with a possible creative interview format because I mean for deep while during the pandemic we got stuck into this whole Kickstarter thing. There's nothing against people with their Kickstarters. We
Mm.
just don't think that that was enough to bring to people to watch, so
Yeah.
we feel like just the format alone was a disservice to creators and a disservice to the fans. So we are trying to evolve where we do get more entertainment based, and if we're going to have a guest, get them more involved in the topic, because I feel like that was also getting lost in translations. Like
No,
a lot of people weren't getting involved with the topics that we had in hand.
listen, I 100% agree with you. I love talking to artists and people who are creative. And if they have a Kickstarter, that's awesome. But, every show being a Kickstarter becomes a kind of a routine.
Yeah,
So it gets a little boring if every show is like that. I like that you didn't have a Kickstarter today and that we could talk about other stuff.
I wanted to
And
come on with a Kickstarter. I was just
yeah,
the whole show was this. I gave you a picture of what I did.
yeah,
That's it.
I love it. I
That's in the
love it.
beginning. The
And can
rest
I
of it is just us having fun talking geek.
and can I come on Nerds and be the complaining guest?
Yeah,
Obviously,
you could
since
be.
I complain about everything.
You could be on that soapbox complaining like, ah.
I yeah, I'm that way. Obviously, I complain and about
No,
everything. So
I mean we try to be the middle ground where
yeah,
it's like at the end of the day, these are the same conversations we were having at the water cooler. These are the
Yeah,
same conversations we were having at kids. We weren't fighting about it. It was just like, you like this, you like this, you didn't, you didn't. Walk away being friends at the end.
mhm.
Um, I never agree with the fact that it's something that gets you so passionate where you're getting angry and you're gonna be like, where you can't be friends at the end, and it's like, what even is worth it? You weren't a friend anyway,
Yeah,
because it's like it shouldn't get you that mad. Where it's like, listen, we have a middle ground, and this is how people grow together. There's a middle ground we both can agree at. There's
exactly.
always going to be a differ of opinions,
Yeah,
as long as your opinions are not hurting people, berating people, and all that. That's about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, don't worry. I won't complain like that. I won't berate people.
No, 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 because I know where you live, Mike. I'll come there with Alex, and
And then just bring a pizza or something, and then we can talk.
yeah, that's all I do. I told George to come join us too.
Yeah,
Listen, we're giving
George.
the
Do
Puerto
you know
Rican vibe.
this? George lives 5 minutes from me.
I'm not shocked. Yeah, your
No,
guys. I'm not gonna
no,
say where you
don't
guys are
don't
at,
don't
but I
say
know where you
where.
guys
But
are at.
he's,
I know
I.
where you guys are
But
at.
it's funny. I've known George for years, and I've lived in this specific location since 2016. And I did not know. In all that time I've known George, I've never known he was 5 minutes from me.
Well, you better be at CreativeCon this year. It's the
I
first
if
show I'm gonna be at.
I'm not really okay. I'm not really doing shows right now. Um, for a few reasons. One, I don't have product. I'm building product. I'm still in the process of building.
No, you better come
Um,
visit me, fool.
but if I can get I'm only really doing shows if I can get kind of like a little entrance. Like you got an extra. You need someone to help work your table. I'll sit with you. Uh,
Well, I'm saying it right now, and people will hear it on this show. It hasn't been officially announced yet,
yeah.
but there is a high chance that I might be tabling at New York City Comic Con this year.
Congratulations already on that. That is a big deal. But yeah, no. But anyway, with conventions, I'm kind of
Yeah.
really done with them right now, and it could be a whole another half hour of me complaining. But
No, I know what you. They're too expensive right now.
it's I love shows, but I don't when I see go to a show and there are celebrities there, I know that I'm not going to be the one people are coming for. I want to do shows that are art based. So if Comic Cons aren't my type of shows I do and I find other types of shows to do, then that's what I'll do. But if a show wants to bring me in and give me a table, this is how I've worked in the past. They give me a table and I do a panel, I do a workshop, something in exchange for the table, and I provide some educational background, whether it's working with kids, whether it's talking to adults, whatever. I'm happy to come in to a show and do panels, and I don't even get a table. You give it to me all day, but give me like a couple of hours just to rest so I can walk the show. I'm fine. Some shows have paid me to come in and do interviews and do things, and I'm very happy, especially when they pay me to come and do the shows. But yeah, I'm just not into
No, it's
shows right now.
listen. That's a whole, like, again. That's a whole another Puerto Rican goodbye topic that we can go over, because I'm in the same opinion. The only reason, so I'm doing CreativeCon this year because I want to prep for New York Comic Con. So this is more of, I'm just prepping to get my feet wet.
Yeah,
I'm looking to do Geeks Out Staten Island because I know the con showrunners for that show, and it's a 1 day show. Don't mind doing it. And I've been asked by Dennis Knight to help with a panel, so definitely doing that show. And
awesome.
they're a great bunch of people.
Yeah,
Um, New York Comic Con just happened by chance. It's still in the works, but I'm gonna give a big shout out to Johnny C, because actually he
yeah,
had approached me last year because he got onto the show, but it's just kind of had no product. So this year I've been focusing on, if there's any show I'm really going to do and go all in 100% would be that show, because of the simple fact it's New York Comic Con. And I said, it's like, it's just a goal of mine to say I've done it.
yeah.
This will be the second time that I've done it, but it'll be like, you know what? I've done the show. My stuff got featured at the show. If I was to do it again after that, by all means, that's great. But if I don't, I don't. I just think that conventions right now are just more celebrity shows, and for the
Yeah.
cosplayers,
Well,
it's tough to make it as an indie guy
here's
at a show unless you're established.
here's what a show is. It's an overpriced, overrated flea market. That is what a comic book convention is. It's a giant flea market that they overcharge you for, not just the artists, but even the guests to come in. All right. And then the vendors overcharge on the toys, on the books. It's hard to get good deals these days because the promoters charge so much money for people to have all this stuff that it's hard to make good deals there. And it's I mean, listen.
Oh, and forget if it's an out-of-state show. You got to factor in your hotel costs. You got to factor in.
It's a flea market. So I enjoy flea markets, and I'll always go to a flea market. But it's just a specialized flea market.
So for Comic-Con, I'm going to come crash on your couch that year.
Listen, the people who have stayed over on my couch say it's better than a mattress. and I'm only I will say this. I am, without traffic, I am a 22-minute drive to the Javits Center. With traffic, it might be 30 to 40.
Oh, I'm not. I'm already mad that I'm already trying to figure out ways how to get my stuff, if everything goes 100% through, to the Javits Center without driving into the city, because it's going to be in that congestion toll area.
Well, from where you are, you might have no choice unless you want to pay a lot of money to have it shipped.
No, I'm probably gonna be like, can I find parking over the bridge and just wheel it into the city through a shopping cart? It's like, yeah.
I mean, they do have those things, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's wrap up. I'm gonna I gotta get up at 7 a.m. You don't want to
go for the 3 hours,
dude. Listen. I can.
It's the same. I gotta get up at 7 a.m. too.
I gotta get
my dog wakes me up at 6:30.
I actually did a show. I think it was with Andrew Rodriguez. Andrew Frank Rodriguez, and we had almost a 4-hour show. Me and him could talk a lot. But that's the thing. When I bring friends on, it's hard to say, hey, we got to stop.
Hard to say goodbye.
Oh, right now it's not. So anyway, man, listen, you guys. First of all, Sebastian, thank you for coming on. You guys check out his Patreon. The links are in the comments. You could read his comic book, Koncrete Kombat, both spelled with K's, just so you know, with a really cool logo, awesome cyberpunk story, with great influences of anime, video games, all this great stuff. We learned a lot today. If you weren't here in the beginning, go back and rewatch this so you can learn really about Koncrete Kombat, Sebastian's work. Awesome stuff. Awesome guy. Thank you for coming on tonight. And
thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. I'm going to drop you backstage. Hang out for a minute. All right. All right, guys. So, wow. Yeah, we're at almost 2 hours and 40 minutes. You guys who stayed the whole show, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun chatting, and I'm sure there's going to be some chatting backstage that'll take us for a while. Anyway, though, next week I will be back with another guest. Check out for the ads that are coming out. And don't forget, right there, at The Wiz Comic, both on Instagram and Facebook. Every Wednesday morning, every Wednesday night is Get in Tune, and Monday night live stream where I'm taking you through the process of creating an animation. We got some new comments. Let me check them out real quick. I'll see you later, Dylan. Thank you, Roger, for watching. Everybody who was in, I will see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day.